Chapter 12:27. The Fish Dragon King looked at Han Fei incredulously. Is this Han Fei? Isn't that Han Fei a human being? How did he become a half-mermaid? However, when the Fish Dragon King saw that Han Fei had changed into his own appearance, he couldn't accept it. From the very beginning, this Han Fei had been preparing to replace him, hadn't he? The Fish Dragon King roared, "What the hell do you want to do? You can't kill me. You Wendao and Gue Sanqing won't be stupid enough to think that you are me." Han Fei chuckled. So, both of them have to die. The Fish Dragon King's body twitched. Is Han Fei crazy? He has just finished his tribulation and now he's ready to kill a half-mermaid? However, when it thought that Han Fei just finished his tribulation, he didn't even consolidate his power but directly sneaked into the Ice God Gorge. Such a crazy move. How strong must he be to do such a thing? Han Fei smiled gently. Don't move. Let me see your soul first. The Fish Dragon King. Outside Forge the Universe. Han Fei, the brand new Fish Dragon King, appeared on the bottom of the sea with a spear in his hand. Han Fei didn't look very surprised, because he saw the Sea Demon King City, a real underwater city. It was like a human town, with buildings, shops, streets, and all kinds of trial-secret realms. Not only that, Han Fei finally knew why the sea demons he saw all yearned for the King City. But no one knew the reason at all. Because the so-called King City only had heavenly talent. In the Sea Demon King City, the worst demonic heritage was a level 6 demonic heritage. And the reason why there was a level 6 demonic heritage was because the sea demon race always needed some people whose strength was between the strong and the weak. The biggest function of these people was to follow a certain strong master. However, unlike the Yin-Yang Heaven or the Waterwood Heaven, how many human beings, including the Insect Clan and the Sky Clan, could really reach a level 6 demonic heritage? Every one of them was cultivated with great effort. But the Sea Clan was different. They controlled the entire sea and had awakened billions of creatures. Some people were responsible for searching the 4 seas just to find those who were also talented. This made Han Fei feel pressure. Because according to the information he read, there were a lot of people in the King City, probably as many as 100,000. Thinking of this, Han Fei's eyes turned cold. He was now more and more worried about the battle on the Yin-Yang Heaven's side. He stood there proudly, his eyes narrowed, and he had an air of superiority. As Han Fei scanned with his divine senses, he found that Yukaling was gone, and the sea was still rolling. There must have been a big battle there. Han Fei didn't care at all. Yukaling's life and death didn't affect him at all. However, Han Fei didn't notice that Lan Shuer, who should have died in the ice, also disappeared. Xiao! Han Fei rushed out quickly, aiming at the mountain where the heavenly vine was. Having lived in the 100,000 mountains for so long, Han Fei knew how to get along with spiritual plant. At this moment, on the mountain peak, 7 or 8 women dressed in red were fighting, and their enemy was a patch of greenish-purple brambles. Among the brambles, there was a large purple-black man-eating flower. Hiss hiss, thousands of black stamens stretched out of the man-eating flower's mouth. Moreover, there were a lot of man-eating flowers surrounding him. Instantly, the sky was filled with black pistols. Squeak! A woman shouted, "Curse-killing technique!" The 7 or 8 women in red were murmuring something. Han Fei didn't know what they were singing. However, just like how the girls spat out lotus flowers, strings of strange rune-like symbols appeared. Those curses turned into shadows of sea demons, humans, insects, and so on, fighting with the thorn demon plants. Han Fei's perception had already seen it clearly. At this moment, he couldn't help but ask in surprise, "What kind of demonic art is this?" The old turtle said, "There are many ways of fighting in this world. In addition to the 5 major professions, fishing, weapons, and so on, there are also curses. There is also a kind of curse technique. For example, the majestic mystic spell that I left behind in my early years is actually a kind of curse technique. If you have a relationship with certain existences, you can borrow the power of that existence. Or, you can borrow the power of that kind of law or great way. Han Fei was a little surprised. Curse? Can it block my punch? Humph, the old turtle said disdainfully, as long as you cultivate to a high level, every kind of spell is extremely terrifying. Curse can kill the enemy thousands of kilometers away, and you can use the momentum of the Great Way to give yourself strength several times greater than your own. This kind of spell is simple. It's nothing more than summoning the remnant souls of some creatures that once existed here through a common curse. Han Fei took a look. Sure enough, those summoned shadows didn't seem to be very strong. They just had some simple combat characteristic. Han Fei curled his lips. Can they be used to fight? The old turtle said, keep watching. Han Fei didn't rush to attack, but just observed for a while. Then, he discovered, to his surprise, that the blood demons were injecting strength into the bodies of those living creatures non-stop. Han Fei wondered, where does the power come from? The old turtle said, this is the power of curse. Through sacrifice, summoning, and spells that coincide with the Great Way, it can endow the summoned with power to fight for itself. Han Fei only saw that the summoned shadows could use combat skills. Some human soul warriors even burst out shadowless arrows and bombarded a large area of thorns and man-eating flowers. Besides, those blood demons didn't only know curse technique. Red leaves floated out of the blood demons' bodies. The red leaves were like fire. They were the leaves of the 10,000-year-old big red trunk. Among these leaves there was always a strange-shaped weapon like a red leaf, like a flying knife, which would surround these blood demons. Whether it was the weapon or the attack method, Han Fei had never heard of them. This group of people went all the way up with an irresistible force. A large number of insects and undead creatures appeared along the way, but they were all strangled by the weapons around them. Those demonic plants were mostly strangled by the flying red leaves and the summoned shadows. This kind of means and power was no worse than the 5 major professions of human beings or sea demons. They didn't even need to do anything themselves. In short, these blood demons from the Blood Sea Divine would give Han Fei the feeling that they were a group of women who didn't need to fight, but only needed to talk. However, after pondering for a long time, Han Fei said leisurely, it seems that they can't take a punch from me. The old turtle. The old turtle was speechless at Han Fei's logic. This wasn't even a type of combat. Did he have to measure it with his fists? On the mountain, black shadows suddenly shuttled through the clouds. Smack! A rotten black vine hacked down from the sky. The terrifying vine finally extracted a stream of black gas from the void. Not good, it's an ancient heavenly vine. A red blood mark opened between the eyebrows of the leading blood demon, and a sword mark cut out from between his eyebrows. Puff, 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 the huge heavenly vine suddenly exploded, and the air was dirty, full of black smoke and some filthy gray-black liquid. Han Fei frowned. Is this heavenly vine alive or dead? Whether dead or alive, the combat power of this heavenly vine seemed to be much weaker than before. Although the blow just now was still very strong, it didn't make sense for it to be shattered so easily by a peak-level sea spirit. If Green Vine was in its normal state, it could at least kill half of the blood demons with a single slap, even if it couldn't kill all of them. Han Fei decided not to wait any longer. With a swish, he disappeared on the spot. On the other side, the blood demons who had turned into a group of red-clothed beauties were about to continue to ascend. The leading woman suddenly looked at the void, let out a scream, and swept a red leaf-shaped blade at the void. Clang! In the twisted void clouds, a palm stretched out with 2 fingers clamping the red leaf. An arrogant voice floated in the air. What was it? It turned out to be just a weapon similar to a knife wheel. Heh! Can it be used as a weapon? Let go. The leaf knife wheel burst into raging flames, bursting with a strange temperature, and strange spells broke out, as if trying to activate this weapon. However, Han Fei stretched out another hand, clasped the weapon with both hands, and suddenly exerted force. Gotcha! The leaf knife wheel, which was at least a divine weapon, was broken by Han Fei with his bare hands. At this moment, the 7 or 8 blood demons' expressions changed drastically. Breaking a divine weapon with bare hands? Who is this person? Chilla. As the clouds dissipated, the arrogant image of the Fish Dragon King appeared in the vision of these blood demons. Fish Dragon King? Just now, when Han Fei attacked the Fish Dragon King, he was still a certain distance from the mountain. Not all peak-level sea spirits had a large perception range, so these villains didn't see the Fish Dragon King and Han Fei. The most they knew was that a big battle broke out not far from them just now. That was all. At this moment, seeing the Fish Dragon King that Han Fei incarnated, their expressions changed drastically, and the leading woman shouted, "Soul-sealing curse!" Buzz, buzz, buzz! Han Fei had already seen someone chanting, and strange runes were coming out of his mouth. But Han Fei was not a fool. His speed was faster than the Fish Dragon King, or even much faster. How could he give others a chance to react? Puff! Han Fei didn't know the instant mystic spear, but he knew a little about Zhang Xuanyu's instant mystic spear. In the blink of an eye, the spear pierced through a blood demon, killing him on the spot. Swish! 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 Poke, poke! Although Han Fei's spear skills were not good, he was fast. In the blink of an eye, 6 of the 8 blood demons died, stabbed to death by his instant mystic spear. The other 2, including the leading one, were released by Han Fei on his own initiative. In the end, Han Fei laughed aloud. A bunch of women want to compete with me for opportunities? Who do you think you are? Go and find the strong masters of your clans. Han Fei roared wildly and domineeringly, and the 2 blood demons who escaped were filled with fury. One of them said, Why didn't we use the illusionary demonic sound just now? The leading man shook his head with a dark face. It's useless. He can reach the 10th place on the heavenly talent list of the Baibei royal city. He won't be trapped in an illusion so easily. However, this person is too arrogant. Let's go and find Rayun and the others. After killing the blood demons, Han Fei stood on the mountainside, looking at the thorny purple vines that were pouncing at him. Han Fei frowned and shouted, "Where is the fairy? I am Wang Han, the first disciple of the 100,000 Mountains. Does anyone still remember Wang Han?" As soon as the word fairy came out, the endless thorny purple vines suddenly paused. Above the sky, 2 long vines fell quickly, but they didn't slash but just fell. Second, asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 12:28. Because Han Fei didn't make a move, the thorns, purple vines and venom-eating flowers didn't attack him. The undead Zergs, on the other hand, were moving restlessly with their broken bodies. They had surrounded Han Fei and seemed to be ready to devour him at any time. However, to Han Fei's surprise, those purple vines clasped the blood demons that Han Fei had just killed and dragged them together. Then, in the fog, the heavenly vines were trembling, and rotten roots stretched out from the ground. These roots directly plunged into the bodies of the red demons. Their bodies quickly withered at a speed visible to the naked eye, and in the blink of an eye, they were sucked dry. Han Fei had a bad feeling. Has this heavenly vine become a real evil creature and begun to devour flesh and blood? Swish! 2 black vines stretched out from the fog. When Han Fei saw the black, decaying vines up close, his face suddenly darkened. This space was not an illusion, but a brand new world like the underground city. There should be more than just undead creatures here. Suddenly, in his mind, the old turtle's voice sounded, "This vine seems to have a little vitality." Huh! Han Fei's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? This vine is alive? The old turtle said, "Yes, it's alive, but its vitality is pitifully low. Otherwise, a peak-level sea spirit wouldn't have cut a whole vine into pieces just now. Han Fei asked, "How did it become like this?" The old turtle said, "You just came to this space. How do you know? However, I keep feeling that there's something not quite right about this space. Including you, your vitality is slowly disappearing. It's just that the speed of loss is very, very slow." Han Fei suddenly took a breath and said, "I don't feel it." The old turtle said, "It shows that your strength is still low. The little vine in front of you is just decaying, but there should be a trace of vitality in it, but not much. Just now, although these people died, their flesh and blood are still fresh, and even their souls are in chaos. The essence of life is still there, so it can provide a glimmer of vitality for this little vine." Han Fei's face became extremely ugly. Has this world become so poor? There was not enough spiritual qi, not much energy, and a lack of vitality. At this moment, the big rotten vine slowly fell to Han Fei's side. Then, Han Fei saw a scene that made him not know whether to laugh or cry. This scene even made Han Fei feel a little sad. He saw that on the thick rotten vine, there were actually a few sprouts growing out. This comical scene was very shocking from afar. A huge vine more than 1,000 meters long seemed to be crushing Han Fei, but it actually stopped half a meter in front of Han Fei. Seeing this scene, Han Fei was about to stretch out his hand, when the thorn's purple vines rioted and the undead insects hissed, as if warning Han Fei not to do anything. Han Fei said, "Don't panic. I am not a sea demon." With that said, Han Fei roared and his body began to change, turning into a big ape. Whether it was a human or a siren, it would eventually develop into a human form. On the other hand, the Beast King technique was just a simple transformation technique, which was different from the evolution technique. The evolution technique seemed to completely turn one into a sea demon. With the help of the art of deception, one could basically turn into any sea demon whose strength was no stronger than one's. However, the Beast King technique was a transformation technique. No matter how realistic it was just a disguise, not real. Sure enough, when Han Fei turned into a big ape, the thorn's purple vines and the undead insects began to stir. Even though their souls were lost, they were shocked by Han Fei's sudden change. Han Fei said, "I am Wang Han, the first disciple of the 4 Supremes of the 100,000 Mountains." Then Han Fei stretched out his fingers again. There were many ways to communicate with spiritual plants. Some spiritual plants could directly show human faces, some spiritual plants could grow fruits to speak for themselves, and some spiritual plants could speak through the body of other creatures, and the heavenly vine was one of the more special ones. It was like a silent guardian, without a face and communicated through consciousness. Therefore, when Han Fei stretched out his hand, those tender leaves directly wrapped Han Fei's hand. In fact, if it were in the past, it wouldn't have been so troublesome. He only needed to press his hand on the heavenly vine to communicate. The heavenly red hibiscus was difficult to communicate with, and the most annoying one was the 9-headed snake grass. Sure enough, when the tender leaves wrapped Han Fei's hand, a voice immediately appeared in Han Fei's mind. "Who are you?" Han Fei said telepathically, "I am Wang Han. The water deity, the Beast King, the Tianqing Venerable, and the Giant King are all my masters." After a long time, the voice said, "I've never heard of you." Han Fei asked, "Have you heard of Fisherman Linglan?" After a long time, the heavenly vine said, "Fisherman Venerable is 20,000 years older than me. Are you the same generation as Fisherman Venerable?" Han Fei was shocked. Fisherman Linglan was 20,000 years older than the heavenly vine? Han Fei took a deep breath and said, "Are you saying that Fisherman Linglan had already died 20,000 years before you? How did she die?" The heavenly vine responded subconsciously, "I don't know. I only heard that Fisherman Venerable led the Avenger to launch a battle. Then, he never came back. At that time, the 100,000 mountains were divided and he was too busy to take care of himself." This is what Master Green Lotus said. His. Han Fei took a deep breath and asked, "Is Green Lotus still alive? I know her. She fought for me." The heavenly vine paused for a long time. "Who are you? How do you know Master Green Lotus?" Master Green Lotus was born in the Age of Doom. Han Fei thought for a moment and said, "Would you believe me if I said I crossed the river of time?" Han Fei felt that the heavenly vine's huge body was trembling. The heavenly vine seemed to remember something and hurriedly asked, "You are that person, you are that person." Han Fei was dumbfounded. "Which person?" The heavenly vine seemed a little excited. It said, "Master Green Lotus mentioned it once. There was a magnificent person who crossed the river of time and ruled the world for 50,000 years. Was it you?" Han Fei was stunned. "Am I so awesome? How did I rule the world for 50,000 years?" Han Fei immediately responded, "So, is Green Lotus still alive?" Han Fei clearly felt a trace of sadness, and the heavenly vine said, "Master Green Lotus dedicated her life to the fairy. Maybe she has died." Han Fei's heart skipped a beat. Just when he was feeling sad, he was shocked. "What did you say? What do you mean that Green Lotus dedicated her life to the fairy?" The heavenly vine trembled slightly. "The fairy is still alive. She hasn't died yet." Han Fei gasped hard. "How long has it been? Is the water fairy still alive? How many tens of thousands of years has it been?" This heavenly vine was born 20,000 years later than Shiman Linglan. Then, there was something about setting the cauldron for 50,000 years in the future. God knows how many years had passed since I was still around? Han Fei was shocked and overjoyed. "Where is she? Where is she?" The heavenly vine trembled and said, "The fairy is on the Divine Child Peak." "Do you know the Divine Child Peak?" "The fairy is in a very, very bad state. Although she sealed this world with her own strength, she has already fallen into a deep sleep because of the lack of spiritual energy and energy. We can only sacrifice our vitality to ensure that the fairy doesn't die." The old turtle suddenly said in surprise, "Boy, have you really traveled through the river of time?" The old turtle suddenly asked in surprise, "Boy, have you really traveled through the river of time?" However, Han Fei frowned and frowned. Lack of vitality? So, this is the reason why there are so many undead creatures in the Thousand Mountain ancient realm? Han Fei was about to ask for more information when the heavenly vine said, "Someone is coming." Han Fei suddenly opened his eyes and scanned with his senses, only to see that 5 or 6 half-mermaids were coming at him from behind. Of course, they sensed Han Fei, but Han Fei was still a big ape at this moment. How did these half-mermaids know him? They thought they had a fortuitous encounter. "Ho!" Han Fei turned around, twisted his body, twisted the void, and knocked the embroidery needle on the head of a half-mermaid with a thud. Bam! Its whole body was blown up by Han Fei's terrifying power. At that moment the other 5 roared, "Retreat!" To their horror they discovered a fact. This strange creature was too fast. It was so fast that they couldn't react at all. However, the void lines had already stretched out and caught the 3 of them in an instant. 2 of them felt that they were too slow, so instead of escaping, they chose to fuse with their associate spirit. In the end, there was only a series of bang, bang, bang sounds, and the 2 of them were directly smashed into a pool of mud. They were only peak-level sea spirit. How could they resist the terrifying power of 200 waves of physical strength? Not to mention 10 strikes, they would have been beaten half to death if they were hit once or twice by Han Fei. Han Fei's body quickly changed into the appearance of the Fish Dragon King again, and he sent these people back to the vine. "Here's your vitality. I'm going to the Divine Child Peak." However, the tender leaves of the heavenly vine stretched out to Han Fei and fell on Han Fei. Only then did it say, "Give it all to the fairy." Han Fei grinned. "Don't worry. Most of the sea demons that came in today will become sacrifices. Your vitality is seriously lacking. Take a good rest first. I'll take care of the rest." As if touched by Han Fei, The heavenly vine fell silent for a moment, and then countless roots extended to the bodies of the sea demons. It seemed to see hope. 3rd. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 12:29. Han Fei had never expected that he would accidentally find the real location of the 100,000 mountains. However, why would the 100,000 mountains end up in the waterwood heaven? In other words, in the era he had lived in, the 36 days had not yet been divided. Was that why the 100,000 mountains could be found in the Inyang heaven and the waterwood heaven? The old turtle said, "Kid, are you bragging? Did you really travel through the river of time? Why? Is there a problem?" "Humph," the old turtle said, "what you said is too mysterious. Even I, the Emperor, can use powerful techniques to cross the river of time. However, there's no way to interact with people from different times, let alone acknowledge a master." Han Fei curled his lips and said, "Don't think you know everything just because you used to be an emperor. There are still many secrets that you don't know." The old turtle didn't refute. Instead, he said in a low voice, "Although I don't know what kind of opportunity you had in the past, I don't know. However, you need to be careful when you're looking for that fairy." The old turtle said, "According to shouting, this person has definitely become a king. However, even if one became a king under normal circumstances, they would not be able to protect a world for tens of thousands of years. If there really was such a world, the kings of the waterwood heaven wouldn't just sit back and watch. Therefore, the world you see now should be that fairy's original body." Under some extreme circumstances, she tried in vain to split open the sky. Unfortunately, her strength was insufficient, so she forcefully swallowed the real world. In the end, her body turned into this world, containing an incomplete world. But now it is equivalent to a half-dead sky-swallowing shell, and it should have no consciousness. Wait a minute. What did you say? Then you say she has already become a king? The world we're in is your original body? That's right, the old turtle said. How do you think Sea Expansion Realm came about? Kings created their own world Sea. This was the Sea Expansion Realm. However, Sea Opening is not enough. Heaven and earth complement each other. The great Tao is yin and yang. If there is sea opening, there will be heaven opening. Only then will heaven and earth be formed. After saying that, the old turtle said in a deep voice, "If you want to use vitality to awaken a king that is extremely lacking in vitality, 10 drops of the water of the spring of life won't be enough. Why don't you get some people, and let her try swallowing them?" Han Fei was stunned. "How the hell am I supposed to steal 10 drops of the spring of life?" "Old Tortoise, do you think the Life Queen knows that there are kings in the 1,000-mountain ancient realm?" asked Han Fei. The old turtle hummed. "Of course I know. She wasn't the only one who knew. The king of the oceanic race knew as well. However, they couldn't enter. They couldn't find this person's location through an entrance. Furthermore, the reason why the number of people was limited to around 5,000 was to prevent this person from awakening and devouring all of them in one go, realizing his true return. 5,000 people and the resources they have shouldn't be enough to revive a king." Han Fei took a deep breath. The Life Queen is not with the fairy? He was unable to confirm this point. Who knew what would happen after the Age of Chaos? He himself did not know that he had only stayed in that era for a few short decades. Han Fei thought, should I go to Shu Xiaoman? Swish swish, when Han Fei quickly flew across the sky, he perceived that at least 20 places were being explored. He saw that a member of the Sky Clan had pulled out a green sword leaf from the rotten branches and leaves of a 1,000-sword banana. Immediately, Han Fei frowned. The 1,000-mountain ancient realm had been reduced to such a state. Did the Life Queen and the Sea Demons still want to send people to take the precious materials here? The so-called precious materials were very common in the 100,000 mountains. Once, when the giant king taught him the 100 battles divine hammer, he said to him, "As long as you work hard, you will have enough materials. The materials that the giant king referred to were not just the bones of sea demons, but also the mines in the 100,000 mountains and the precious materials of various spiritual plants that had fallen and could produce continuously. For example, on the mountain far away, the 1,000-sword banana that the Sky Clan pulled out had a jade heart sword that grew every 100 years. After 100 years, if nobody took it away, the jade sword would become one of the special sword leaves of the 1,000-sword banana. The more special sword leaves there were, the higher the cultivation of the 1,000-sword banana. In Han Fei's memory, he seemed to have seen a 1,000-sword banana with 72 special sword leaves. This meant that the 1,000-sword banana had lived for at least 7,200 years. Han Fei hadn't dealt with the 1,000-sword banana himself, but he had dealt with the heaven-splitting sword hemp. When the water goddess was teaching him, she once let the heaven-splitting sword hemp attack Han Fei. Han Fei had poked holes all over its body, which was extremely dangerous. However, the sound of the two big birds talking came to Han Fei's ears. One of them said, "It's a pity. According to my sister, when she came last time, this 1,000-sword banana hadn't fallen yet. But this time it seems to have fallen for decades." The other said, "Alas! Not only this one has fallen, but more than 20 of them have fallen on this mountain. Let's pick them all. Anyway, we can't let them fall into the hands of the sea demons." Phew! Hearing this, Han Fei let out a long breath of relief. Are they picking the fallen 1,000-sword banana? Han Fei was still thinking, the major clans in the 100,000 mountains are all very close to me. If the Life Queen also wants to kick me when I'm down, what should I do? At least, I will definitely be vigilant against the Life Queen and be careful. Now, knowing that they were only going to take the treasures of the fallen creatures, Han Fei was relieved. He scanned again. 500 kilometers away, some sea demons were attacking a patch of purple bamboo and red-bellied spiders. Among them, some were quite strong and had already killed dozens of spiders. Of course, the entire mountain was full of spiders. It would not be easy for them to rush up and get the treasures. However, since he had encountered them, he would just kill them along the way. This was impossible. A sea demon shouted, "All of you, attack with all your might. Fighting for the treasures is not the key. Let's all disperse. At that time, the treasure hunting battle will also be a hunting battle. Hunting is far faster than looking for treasures on our own." As soon as this person finished speaking, with a swish, a figure appeared in their perception. In an instant, everyone's spirits were lifted. "Huh? It's the Fish Dragon King. Why is he here alone?" Someone said, "Such a heavenly talent always does what he wants. He probably doesn't like to be followed, right?" Someone wondered, "Why is he coming towards us?" When Han Fei was within 100 kilometers, someone said, "Greetings, Master Dragon King." Han Fei grunted and didn't slow down. In the blink of an eye, he had passed 50 or 60 kilometers. Before they realized what was going on, Han Fei had already arrived. At this moment, the red-bellied spiders surrounded them. Those people were standing, wondering, what does the Fish Dragon King mean? Does he also need the treasures here? Han Fei held the spear in his hand, glanced at the people who were fighting, and shook his head slightly. "Goodbye. Swish, Poochie BM." Almost in an instant, these sea demons were directly stabbed to death by Han Fei before they could even react. They probably didn't expect that a powerhouse ranked 10th on the heavenly talent list in the royal city would suddenly attack them. Even those red-bellied spiders were dumbfounded. What's going on? Internal strife? However, these spiders immediately realized that Han Fei might be a more terrifying person. When they were about to attack, they saw the void in front of Han Fei twist. Immediately afterward, Han Fei was gone. It only took half an hour for Han Fei to clean up as many as 50 half-mermaids and blood demons. However, Han Fei was quite generous this time. He didn't take any of their sea-swallowing seashells. Instead, he casually scattered all the resources that they had on them. According to the old turtle, If this world itself was the water fairy, then these resources were actually left to her. Besides, as soon as the people he was hunting entered the thousand-mountain ancient realm, they were directly attracted by some mountains at the outermost edge. This kind of insight couldn't make it to the top. Although the Fish Dragon King seemed a bit impulsive to rush in as soon as he came in, it didn't mean that he was wrong. However, Han Fei had a different understanding. Han Fei's understanding was different. You've just entered a strange place, so you should at least know what this place is. What are the rules? At this moment, he had wasted a bit of time and gotten rid of some short-sighted people. Han Fei stepped in the void and adjusted his direction with his body's instinctive reaction. With a swish, he flew out. Han Fei didn't care about other people's gazes at all when he flew. He was flying fast in the appearance of the Fish Dragon King. The thousand-mountain ancient realm wasn't as large as he imagined. There were always some people on the way. A member of the Sky Clan saw Han Fei and immediately chattered, "Isn't he the heavenly talent of the Sea Clan? Come on, chase him and see where he is going." At the bottom of the sea, a blood demon was surprised. The Fish Dragon King? Why is he alone? This is a good opportunity. If I can hunt this person, my strength will definitely improve greatly. A human being saw Han Fei and immediately frowned. This person seems to be a heavenly talent from the Bai Bei royal city. There was also a clam girl who seemed to be somewhat familiar with the Fish Dragon King. She was leading a dozen people to climb a mountain with unique bump. On the surface of the sea, withered seaweeds were sweeping at them overwhelmingly. On the mountain, cones occasionally appeared and attacked them. Not only that, two of them seemed to have fallen into illusions and were going crazy. Shui Hongyan? Han Fei frowned. Isn't she one of the heavenly talents who are at odds with the Fish Dragon King? After reading the Fish Dragon King's soul, Han Fei learned that Shui Hongyan ranked 12th on the heavenly talent list in the royal city. Within 3 years, she had risen from 18th to 12th. Hey! Kill her first. Chapter 1230. As the saying went, heavenly talents fought against each other, each more arrogant than the other. When Shui Hongyan saw Han Fei, her whole aura rose. She was thinking, should I attack the Fish Dragon King? However, it was obviously not a good time to attack. If the Fish Dragon King was seriously injured, she would definitely attack. Even if she couldn't kill it, she would be willing to kick it when it was down. But at this moment, although the Fish Dragon King didn't bring anyone with him, he didn't seem to be in a bad state at all. Although she didn't think highly of the Fish Dragon King, she hated this guy who was arrogant for no reason because of his Dragon King bloodline. But when it came to fighting, she really didn't have the confidence to defeat the Fish Dragon King at all. Unless Yu Hong was also here, there might be a little hope if the two of them joined forces. As for the followers around her, to be honest, they were just cannon fodder. It was impossible for them to stop the Fish Dragon King in his peak state. However, what Shui Hongyan didn't know was that the talented and powerful Fish Dragon King in her eyes had been crippled by Han Fei before he could even summon his companion spirit. At this moment, he was still lying in Forge the Universe, moaning. This was unbelievable. When Han Fei saw Shui Hongyan, he felt that he had seen a pile of treasures. Unfortunately, these treasures had to be left to this world. Creatures like the clam girl always felt like they had their own space. After they died, their shells would turn into a space. How could she not have a lot of resources when she was a character with her own space? Now, apart from seeing the water fairy, what Han Fei wanted to see most was this kind of ATM. Of course, he wouldn't let go of this opportunity. Therefore, just when Shui Hongyan thought that Han Fei would fly over, Han Fei rushed at her with a swoosh. Shui Hongyan's face suddenly changed. Fish Dragon King, do you think you can defeat me alone? Don't forget, you haven't entered the top 5. It's impossible for you to penetrate my shell. Han Fei grinned. Since we are not in the capital, who can defeat me, the Fish Dragon King? You, a clam girl? I order you to hand over your sea-swallowing seashells, and I can spare your lives. Otherwise, you can all die. Many people's faces changed. Someone said, Master Dragon King, this is a secret realm. We are of the same clan. How can we kill each other? Han Fei grinned hideously. What are you waiting for? Do you think you're worthy of being called the same race as me, the Fish Dragon King? You are of the same clan as the Fish Dragon King? Everyone's expression changed. How arrogant must he be to raise such a character? Everyone roared, let's fight! Shui Hongyan roared, star mark, spatial rifts appeared one after another. In the blink of an eye, a large white shell appeared in midair. In the blink of an eye, the dragon. Therefore, when he sprinted forward, he not only had to face the cracks in the void, but also the invisible blade. Dragon, star, dragon, star, Q, Shui. See Li, however, Shui, other dragon. See, dragon. The Fei, he, dragon. King close, Han, fish. Dragon, Fei, can. Dragon, he, see, he, to say. With a hum, Han Fei had already appeared in his own camp. With a hum, Han Fei had appeared in his camp. Crack! Crack! Boom! In the blink of an eye, the three people closest to Han Fei were killed without even having a chance to fight back. Han Fei, who was a peak-level law enforcer, was equally terrifying when facing creatures of the same realm. The Void Lines had only captured 5 people. There were still others who had blocked the Void Lines. If it's not the sea, who are you? Shui Hongyan seemed to be pulling a thread out of the void, fleeing at an extremely fast speed. Han Fei stepped out, and the phantom of mountains and rivers appeared. Punishing Saber, Water Luster, Fire Seed, and Tree Spirit appeared. Because Earth 9 didn't fight, Han Fei didn't call it, which could save some energy. Han Fei chased after him and shouted, "You take care of the rest. You can only use the strength of a peak-level law enforcer." Swish! Han Fei stopped pretending and slashed with the draw technique. The infinity water was condensed in the void and blocked Shui Hongyan's way of escape in only half a second. At this time, Shui Hongyan had already crawled into the shell, and her voice was trembling. "You are not the Fish Dragon King. Who are you exactly?" Han Fei glared at Shui Hongyan ferociously. "Who says I'm not the Fish Dragon King? Don't I look like it?" Clang, clang, clang. Han Fei stepped in the void with his hands behind his back, looking casually at the shell that was being cut by the infinity water crazily. Speaking of which, I've always felt that the clam girls are very strange creatures. Shouldn't you contribute such a powerful shell to build a divine weapon? Han Fei wasn't panicked at all, because the shell couldn't resist the infinity water at all. After a sweep of the million knife art, countless white marks and a crack had appeared on the white shell. Shui Hongyan exclaimed, "Let me go. Since you are not the Fish Dragon King, we have no conflict." When Shui Hongyan shouted, Han Fei sensed that invisible threads were planted in the void around him, trying to control him. He had already experienced this trick in the Sea of Pearls on the Scattered Stars Island. How could he let Shui Hongyan succeed? Han Fei grinned and stretched out his finger. 10,000 knives in one. An exclamation seemed to burst out of the shell. "Wait a minute, Clang Kacha!" The white shell was cut open by a sword, and the void lines pierced through. Ignoring the resistance of Shui Hongyan's soul, Han Fei began to extract her vitality. "What can I do to make you let me go? We are of the same clan. Why do you have to kill each other?" Han Fei smiled. The void lines were indeed about to be upgraded. Faced with these heavenly talents who had strong souls and probably had secret treasures, the void lines couldn't hit them every time. Of course, he could still steal vitality. Bam! Han Fei stood on the shell, and the spear of the Fish Dragon King pierced through Shui Hongyan. "Who told you that I am of the same clan as you? I, Han Fei, am an orthodox human. My bloodline is so pure that only the mermaid royal family can match it. Who do you think you are? Without giving Shui Hongyan a chance to self-destruct, the infinity water had already stirred up the shell. When Shui Hongyan was dying, her eyes widened when she heard the name Han Fei. Isn't this the peerless heavenly talent from the Shui Mu heaven? In the end, she was still a little confused. Why can only the mermaid royal family be comparable to you humans? Ordinary mermaids are already high and mighty, let alone the mermaid royal family? However, she would never have a chance to know. Han Fei scanned with his perception and found that the battle on Punishing Saber's side was over. The 5 people he had just controlled with the void lines but failed to kill had already been wrapped into spider cocoons by the red-belly spiders. There were only a dozen of them. Han Fei killed 8 ordinary peak-level sea spirits and Shui Hongyan. Punishing Saber and the others easily killed the rest. At this moment, Han Fei casually threw Shui Hongyan into the purple bamboo forest and shouted, "Red Star Heavenly Bamboo, take this vitality and use it yourself. Recover as soon as possible. I'll find a way to save the fairy." Da-da-da. He heard a lot of bamboo knocking, and a beautiful melody came from the bamboo. Hearing the melody, Han Fei understood the meaning of the Red Star Heavenly Bamboo. "Who are you? Why are you helping me?" Han Fei smiled faintly. "I am Wang Han, the first disciple of the 100,000 Mountains. If you want to know my story, I'll tell you after I save the fairy." After easily killing a group of strong masters, Han Fei rushed out again. After all, there was only one way to the Divine Child Peak. On this way, he would meet some people, but not many. In the 100,000 Mountains, the distance crossed by 1,000 mountains was already very large. When he and Shiman Linglan flew across the 100,000 mountains, it took them a whole day and a night. According to the appearance of the mountains in his memory, Han Fei quickly determined which mountain these mountains belonged to. Based on this, he determined the direction to go. Soon, it only took half an hour for Han Fei to find the Divine Child Peak under the pursuit of a large group of immortal birds. As for those immortal birds, Han Fei could only sigh. What a pity! Compared with demonic plants, races such as humans, orcs, the Sky Clan, and the war giants had a much shorter lifespan. Han Fei remembered that when the Water Fairy gave him his first lesson, she had already said that demonic plants had a very long lifespan. Before, Han Fei didn't have this concept, but now he did. How long has it been since that era? The Water Fairy could still survive? This was simply a miracle. The Divine Child Peak was extremely steep, and the wind and rain were everywhere. Even in this world, it was still the same. At this moment, Han Fei stood proudly in the sky, looking at the shadows in the wind and rain, and said, "Nine-headed snake grass, I don't know which era you are from. I'm Wang Han of the 100,000 Mountains. If you haven't heard of my name, let me rephrase it. I'm the Water Fairy's disciple." Then, Han Fei's body shook slightly and he tried to twist the void to enter the Divine Child Peak. He couldn't force his way in. Having stayed in the 100,000 Mountains for so long, Han Fei certainly knew how dangerous the Divine Child Peak was. Well, he couldn't get out of the mist after entering it. However, to Han Fei's surprise, even the Star Passage technique failed. The Divine Child Peak was blocked by an unknown force, and even the space was blocked. The Star Passage technique had lost its effect. Bam! Just as Han Fei frowned, wondering if he should walk into the mist and have a look, 2 huge heads suddenly stuck out of the mist. Suddenly 2 giant heads popped out of the fog. Who else could it be but the 9-headed snake grass? And these 2 heads had been necrotic. One of them was almost rotten, and there was no longer any green color. The other one was dark green, with patches of black and green. It was no longer as majestic as the 9-headed snake grass. Han Fei's heart sank. The 9-headed snake grass that guarded the Divine Child Peak had become like this? With a thought, Han Fei threw out 10,000 caddies of spiritual spring and 100 energy fruit. Take them and recover. Top. Chapter 12:31. Faced with the 9-headed snake grass that was about to rot, it didn't care where this spiritual energy came from. Who gave it to it? Anyway, as long as Han Fei gave it to it, it had to accept it no matter what. The huge tongue sucked, and the spiritual spring and the energy fruit were sucked away. Then, the two snakeheads were hidden in the mist again. Han Fei pondered for a moment. There were not many people who knew about the Divine Child Peak or had touched it. Besides, since he was here, the fairy was inside. He couldn't meet her in the appearance of the Fish Dragon King. Han Fei stood in midair, and his body began to twist and deform. At the moment when Han Fei transformed, he also saw a snakehead sticking out of the mist again. It seemed to be curious about what Han Fei was doing. However, when Han Fei slowly turned into a human being, the snakehead couldn't help but lean its head closer. Han Fei said grumpily, "I'm Wang Han. Open a way for me to go in. Aren't you able to transmit or speak human language? Say something." The nine-headed snake grass could speak human language, but its voice was like thunder. Seeing that it was exposed, the nine-headed snake grass asked, "Who are you? I've never heard of the name Wang Han." Han Fei grinned. "Have you heard of the name Shiman Linglan?" As he spoke, Han Fei hummed, "I'm speaking Jotun now. You should know that, right?" Then, with a buzz, Han Fei turned into a big ape and hummed, "Have you seen the Beast King?" Hum. In the blink of an eye, Han Fei turned into the human form of the heavenly god again. Unfortunately, the heavenly god had never shown his true form. Therefore, Han Fei didn't know what the heavenly god's true form was. He could only turn into the cold heavenly god. The snakehead of the nine-headed snake grass was still swaying. "I've never seen the Beast King or the heavenly god. That was the era of kings. I wasn't even born yet." Han Fei hesitated for a long time. For some reason, he suddenly remembered what Shu Xiaoman said, "Will you become a woman?" F***ck. Don't tell me that the Life Queen already knew about this relationship? Han Fei was horrified. No way. Even he felt that what he had experienced was very bizarre. Until now, no one had said anything about it. The Life Queen couldn't be this amazing, could she? You even know this? However, facing the Hydra grass, whose brain might be broken, Han Fei gritted his teeth and said, "Although you don't have eyes, you'd better watch what's going to happen next." Han Fei's body began to change. He began to shrink, his hair grew longer, and his cheeks contracted. In the blink of an eye, a beautiful woman appeared in midair. Who else could it be but the water immortal? Of course, Han Fei only changed his figure and face, but nothing more. The nine-headed snake grass was dumbfounded. All of a sudden, the 9 rotten snake heads all ran out. It was as if one of the heads could not be seen clearly. Han Fei said gloomily, "Have you seen enough? Once you're done, clear the way for me." As he spoke, Han Fei raised his hand, and 100,000 caddies of spiritual spring floated in the air. Do you think I'm stupid? If the fairy had nothing to do with me, why would I give her resources? Besides, the Divine Sun is not here. Do you really think the Divine Sun Peak can stop me? With that, Han Fei's figure continued to change. It was too shameful to dress as a woman, so it was better to turn into a man. Even if this man had a strange appearance. In the blink of an eye, Han Fei grew horns on his head, and turned into the appearance of the Divine Sun. This time, the 9-headed snake grass didn't react at all. Han Fei was speechless. This is the Divine Sun. You live on the Divine Sun Peak. Have you never seen the Divine Sun? The 9-headed snake grass trembled slightly and responded a little slowly. Who are you? Han Fei was speechless. I told you that I am the fairy's disciple. I can't tell you the details. Clear the way for me first. If you don't, how long can this world last? The fairy is very short of energy and spiritual energy now, isn't she? The 9-headed snake grass seemed a little hesitant. However, Han Fei had clearly changed into the appearance of the fairy. It couldn't be fake, right? Ever since he had been guarding the Godchild Peak, there had only been one person who had come to the Godchild Peak. And that person would never harm the fairy in any case. The rotten head of the nine-headed snake grass sorted out its thoughts and stretched out a head. Come into my mouth. I will take you into the divine sun peak. Han Fei put away the spiritual spring and stepped over without hesitation. When standing in the head of the nine-headed snake grass, Han Fei found that the plant was emitting a stench, which was the smell of decaying plants. Even the divine child peak was in such a poor state. Han Fei's heart sank. I have to save the fairy in the water fairy. When I left, the fairy in the water fairy turned into a flower bud. Now, how many tens of thousands of years had passed? What had become of the fairy in the water fairy? The periphery of the divine sun peak was not open to the public. The mist had the ability to make people lose their way. Where exactly was the mist? No one knew. There seemed to be an infinite space in the mist. Anyway, Han Fei had only been to the divine sun peak once. The divine sun must have deliberately opened a hole for him to go in. This was actually the second time for Han Fei. He passed through the layers of mist and went inside. When a burst of gray mist drifted past, the scene in front of Han Fei changed. It was still the withered tree. The red ribbon-like leaves had withered and turned into a bare tree without leaf. This weird tree seemed to have withered. Was it still alive? But at least there were no divine suns here. Han Fei couldn't help but sigh. In the head of the nine-headed snake grass, Han Fei saw a lotus flower in front of the tree. It was a 9-leaf lotus flower, but at this moment, there was only one lotus seat and one lotus petal left. With a swish, Han Fei's body flashed and he appeared on the divine sun peak. The nine-headed snake grass shook, fearing that Han Fei would hurt the fairy in the water fairy. However, Han Fei saw at a glance that this lotus seat was protected by an array. Even if there was only one lotus petal left, it couldn't be moved by ordinary people. However, for Han Fei, who could steal vitality and was good at arrays, it didn't seem to be very difficult. He felt that, if it were him, he could probably break it with some time. Of course, Han Fei would never do that. On the lotus seat, the beautiful figure of the water fairy was lying quietly. Her face didn't change at all. It seemed that she had just fallen into a deep sleep. Han Fei turned his head excitedly and looked at the nine-headed snake grass. How can I give spiritual energy, and vitality to the fairy? The nine-headed snake grass said, just inject it directly into the lotus seat. The fairy will instinctively take it. Han Fei couldn't help but look at the nine-headed snake grass. Did you give all the spiritual energy and energy I just gave you to the fairy? The nine-headed snake grass nodded slightly. Of course, it had to give such a precious thing. In the end, when it couldn't hold on anymore, all the living creatures in this world would dedicate their vitality to the fairy. Han Fei immediately raised his hand and injected 500,000 caddies of spiritual spring, which made the nine-headed snake grass shrink back in shock. This was probably the most extravagant injection of spiritual energy he had ever seen in his life. In fact, this was not a lot of spiritual energy. 500,000 spiritual spring was just 500 million points of spiritual energy. After deducing all kinds of techniques, Han Fei had about 500 million points of spiritual energy left. In addition to the 10,000 caddies that he just gave to the nine-headed snake grass, plus the ones he robbed and the fish dragon king, Han Fei had about 300 million points of spiritual energy left. Han Fei was a little regretful. If I had known this, I wouldn't have bombed the iceberg city. Otherwise, I would have at least 5 billion points of spiritual energy left to give to the water fairy. The spiritual energy was crazily drawn into the lotus seat like a roaring river. Han Fei ignored it and cast a holy light technique on the nine-headed snake grass. The nine-headed snake grass's body shook and vitality was recovering. A large number of decayed and broken meridians were withering and trying to regrow. The nine-headed snake grass hurriedly said, "Give it to the fairy. Don't waste it." Han Fei shouted in a low voice, "It's not a big deal. I don't have enough spiritual energy here. I have to go hunt some sea demons later. It was like a river if measured by the naked eye. At this moment it was poured into the divine child peak, causing the spiritual energy here to soar into the sky and be visible in all directions. But Han Fei didn't care. The people outside were all useless. If he fought normally, he could fight 1,000 people alone. At this moment the old turtle said, "You can't understand the energy and spiritual energy that a king needs to consume. You have too few resources. If you had 10 times more, you might be able to see it. Even if you can't revive her, it's not a problem to keep this space for 100 years. Clatter. Han Fei waved his hand again, and threw out the remaining 300 million points of spiritual energy. The 9-headed snake grass trembled again. How much spiritual energy does this guy have? Not only that, Han Fei gritted his teeth and threw out more than 2,000 spiritual fruits, which all turned into energy and spiritual energy and were absorbed into the lotus seat, causing the clouds on the divine child peak to change color and spiritual energy to soar into the sky. In the distance, many people raised their heads and looked in the direction of the divine child peak. A sky monster exclaimed, "There seems to be a rare treasure over there." A bug buzzed, "Go over there. There must be the bodies of the ancestors of the bug clan there." Shu Xiaoman and the others were searching for the dead creatures and picking up treasures. How could they not be shocked when they saw the strange light in the distance? Someone shouted, "Let's go!" The blood demons were all surprised too. Was it possible that somebody had dug out something? A blood demon said, "Let's go! Hurry up!" A blood demon said, "Royun, what are you thinking? There must be a rare treasure over there." Yang Royun said casually, "If we can see it, then everyone can see it. Do you think it's a good thing?" Chapter 1232. The main purpose of the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm was not to explore. It was not to deliberately create a huge amount of treasures. The kings all knew that this was a king's world, and there must be great opportunities here. Whether it was human beings or sea demons, the reason why they kept sending people here was to ensure that these treasures couldn't be monopolized by either side. Otherwise, one expert after another would inevitably be created, which was what no one wanted to see. On the other hand, although there was a high chance of dying in the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm, since it was the place where the king slept, it meant that there was a chance to become a king inside. At least, everyone who knew the inside story thought that there was a chance here. What if they got some kind of inheritance? Even if there was no inheritance, would there be other great opportunities? For the sea demons, if the sleeping king in this space belonged to the 10,000 clans, they would send more people here. Their purpose was also very simple, which was to hollow and destroy this space as much as possible. At this moment, Han Fei was frowning, because he no longer had any resources on him. He only kept 100 spirit fruits for himself in case he needed them in battle. Facing the 9-headed snake grass, Han Fei cast the holy light technique again and then left it alone. Anyway, after so many years, he was not in a hurry to recover. Although the water fairy showed no signs of recovering, the massive amount of spiritual energy and energy being absorbed was not completely useless. First of all, Han Fei noticed that there was a green light flowing around the lotus under the water fairy. The abundant supply of spiritual energy and energy was automatically used to stabilize the barriers around the lotus. Then, Han Fei saw that the only remaining lotus petal straightened a little. If it was a little listless before, it looked particularly energetic at this moment. In the end, the water fairy was also covered in a dense aura. The old tortoise said, "That person left behind a lot of backup plans. After the lotus throne dealt with it, although the resources you threw out today couldn't awaken her complete consciousness, they did awaken a trace of her self-awareness, which is her self-defense awareness." Han Fei glanced at Forge the Universe, only to find that there was nothing left but a pile of scrap metal. Those things were useless in the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm. What Han Fei desperately needed now was vitality like the spring of life. Unfortunately, during the tribulation, the immeasurable fruit was gone. Now, it should have become a part of his meridians. Otherwise, such a supreme-grade spiritual fruit would be extremely beneficial to the water deity. Now, there was only one way left: the apocalyptic divine technique. The reason why he hadn't thought of using the apocalyptic divine art before was that he would have to pay a heavy price to use it once. One of the major effects of the apocalypse divine arts was the overdraft of one's life force. The caster could use their life as the price to activate the heavenly awakening divine power to recover from their injuries. At this moment, Han Fei thought to himself, I have a lifespan of more than 2,000 years. It shouldn't be a problem for me to use a little bit of my lifespan to activate the apocalyptic divine technique, right? After all, life force could also be seized. At that time, he could just snatch it back. Han Fei pondered for a moment. It was just one treatment. In Forge the Universe, there were 100 spiritual fruits and some spirit awakening fluid. Although they didn't seem to be of much use to vitality, they were still a manifestation of Tao. It shouldn't be a problem for him to use the Heaven Awakening Divine Art once, right? Han Fei took a breath and said to the water deity, If I can't do it this time, wait for me. I'll find a way to get out and ask the Life Queen for some spring of life. With that, Han Fei spread out his hands, and golden light enveloped him in the blink of an eye. The apocalyptic divine art, known as the immortal divine art, could connect with the origin of the void at the cost of one's life. When he activated the apocalyptic divine art, Han Fei finally knew what it meant to pay with one's life. He felt that his vitality was no longer fresh, and his vitality was rapidly weakening. The old turtle exclaimed, Little B****, what are you doing? Your vitality is rapidly fading. Is this apocalyptic divine art? Han Fei only felt that his vitality was being sucked away, and he had no time to talk to the old turtle. A golden pillar of milky white light fell directly from the sky. The golden pillar of light enveloped the water deity again. Han Fei felt the feeling of vitality fading again. The old turtle roared, Where did you learn the apocalyptic divine art? Although this art is good, you haven't entered the Tao yet, and your vitality is at least several times more consumed than those who have. Han Fei sensed for a moment and gritted his teeth. How do I know how much vitality I've consumed? The old turtle sneered. You haven't comprehended the Tao yet, so you can't feel it directly. You can calculate it according to the strength of the vitality in your body at this moment. 10% less means 200 years. You won't recover until you stop using the apocalyptic divine art. Han Fei's expression changed. While talking to the old turtle, his vitality had been reduced by more than 10%. In other words, his 200 years of lifespan had been gone? 10 seconds later, Han Fei felt that the strength of his vitality had been reduced by 30%. And the reason why he was still able to persevere was because he could hear the water fairies breathing. Han Fei's eyes lit up. It's working. The old turtle said, your lifespan is comparable to that of a half-venerable. 30% of your vitality can actually revive her vitality. But that's enough. Stop it now. It's already very commendable that you can revive her vitality, not to mention the apocalyptic divine art. However, your level is too low, and you haven't entered the Tao yet. It's still not enough to wake her up. Han Fei curled his lips. Don't panic. I can also absorb other people's vitality. There are thousands of sea demons outside. I can replenish them in less than half a day. The old turtle was speechless. Then you have to stop it quickly. This is no longer a combat skill, but a Tao. The deeper you enter the Tao, the lower the consumption. You spent 1,000 years of your lifespan to enter this Tao. The same apocalyptic divine art consumes only half of what it is now. Han Fei asked, How long will it take to enter the Tao? Seeing that the water deity was breathing lightly and the lotus petals began to sway, Han Fei stopped using the apocalyptic divine art. This was a kind of continuous life-saving technique. The moment Han Fei stopped, the feeling of vitality fading also disappeared. Han Fei staggered slightly and felt a little dizzy. Now his body was weak, and the power contained in his vitality had been reduced by nearly half, which meant that this apocalyptic divine art cost him nearly 1,000 years of his lifespan. "Are you okay?" The nine-headed snake grass completely trusted Han Fei now. Just now, that terrifying life force made him believe that if it fell on his body, he would only need 5 breaths' time to recover to his peak state and recreate the glory of his peak. Although such a powerful vitality still couldn't wake up the water deity. However, the difference between now and just now on the lotus seat was huge. At this moment, the lotus seat was enshrouded in mist and glowed brilliantly. Han Fei grinned. "I'm fine. Don't panic." Han Fei really didn't panic at all. With a flip of his hand, the last hundreds of spiritual fruits on his body floated up and exploded. "Whoo!" Activating the swallowing technique, Han Fei swallowed these spiritual fruits in one breath. Of course, it didn't help his vitality recover, but it could quickly slow down his weakened state. Han Fei sat cross-legged, looked at the colorful divine child peak, and said to the nine-headed snake grass, "Later, if someone comes from outside, don't attack. Just tie them up and wait for me to recover." Then Han Fei sat cross-legged and began to recover. Outside. Clang. The sound of a bell rang in the sky, and dense green mist floated in the sky. Just when Han Fei was resting, countless demonic plants on thousands of mountains were shocked almost at the same time. "Fairy, are you recovering?" At that moment, all sorts of demon plants sprang up from the belly of the mountains and faced the sky. The sea demons, the blood demon, and the Shuemu heaven quickly gathered and were gathering. Outside the divine child peak, the sky clan of the Shuemu heaven arrived first, and a big bird tried to rush into the divine child peak. However, as soon as it flew in, it flew out the way it came. Because the space here was distorted and it was impossible to pass through in a normal way. After a while, people from 3 parties arrived one after another. The people of the Shuemu heaven, the sea demons, and the blood demon had arrived. Outside the divine child peak, there were more than 3,000 people. Of course, some people also realized that there must be something unusual outside the divine child peak. While everyone was going to the divine child peak, they went to look for treasures, including Yang Ruyan. At this moment, the 3 parties were attacking each other. Yu Hong glanced at Xu Xiaoman. He still remembered the scene where Xu Xiaoman killed dozens of people in a row, although that woman's means were weird and he couldn't get close to her. He immediately shouted, "Female demons of the blood sea divine wood, we're both members of the Sea Clan. Let's work together to kill the humans first. How about that?" However, none of the women leading the blood demon responded. Only one woman sneered. "Don't talk nonsense. We're just here to look for opportunities. The White Shell Royal City and the Shuemu Heaven can fight as you like. It's none of our business." A bug buzzed, "Let's go." A sea demon sneered. "The treasures here belong to those who are fated to get them. Let's go in together, regardless of life or death. How about it?" Some humans said to each other via voice transmission, "I agree. Even if we die, we'll still make a profit. They have more people than we do." A big bird responded, "It's feasible. I went in just now and didn't encounter any danger, but it was easy to get lost and come out." A little treant said, "I'll try to climb up from the bottom of the sea and the mountain wall." A blood demon said to each other via voice transmission, "Let's go first and see what's going on. The more people there are, the better it will be for us." At the top. Chapter 1233. After using the Heaven Awakening Divine Technique once, Han Fei found that this technique had extremely high requirements to use. If he used it in his current state, the moment he activated it, he could clearly feel his vitality fading away. However, as the old turtle said, it would be much easier for a Tao-reaching cultivator to use this technique. Therefore, the path he took seemed to be very important. Was it difficult to become a spirit gatherer? Han Fei didn't think so. At least, since he began to learn the spirit concentration art, he had always felt that it was quite easy for him to use the spirit concentration art. However, here came the problem. The old turtle said that a path could only accommodate one person, and the rest were all enemies. And the path of the 5 major professions had existed a long time ago and had almost spread throughout human society. Were the 5 major professions strong? Of course they were. For example, his arrays, refiners, and spiritual energy control, which of them didn't need the support of a spirit gatherer? But behind these professions, were there reapers? Thinking about it, Han Fei felt creeped out. At this moment, the 9-headed snake grass said, "There are a lot of people." As soon as Han Fei recovered, he saw the 9 heads of the 9-headed snake grass waiting for him. Because he had just used the holy light technique twice, the 9-headed snake grass now had 3 usable heads. Of course, it was obviously not enough to recover all of them. But at this moment, Han Fei had basically used up everything he could use. Even half of his lifespan had been used up. There was really nothing left. Hearing that the 9-headed snake grass said there were a lot of people, Han Fei's eyes immediately lit up. Okay. Han Fei suddenly stood up and said, "Since you are guarding here, you should be very familiar with the spatial array of the Divine Child Peak. How can I perceive the outside world on the Divine Child Peak? Or, how can I view this array?" The 9-headed snake grass stretched its huge head over and said, "Just stand on my body." Han Fei's eyes lit up and he stepped on the 9-headed snake grass's head. Then, his divine senses swept out and covered more than 500 kilometers around. He didn't need to care about the periphery anymore. As soon as his perception swept out, he found that a total of nearly 1,000 people were charging at the array. They had entered the Divine Child Peak and were trying their best to find a way through the mist. The 9-headed snake grass said, "I can activate the restrictions of the Godchild Peak and activate the power of thunder and wind." Han Fei quickly said, "Don't. These are all vitality, don't waste them." Han Fei rolled his eyes and took out his dragon burial rod. He hadn't fished for a long time. At this time, in the outside world, the wind and rain were like the sea. Were half-mermaids not fish? Aren't blood demons fish? Swish, 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 Han Fei's void lines stretched out and extended into the mist. Puff, 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 in the heavy mist, Han Fei's vision was extremely clear because of the hydra grass. The void line pinched the target accurately. Sensing the danger, a half-mermaid immediately protected his soul with the jellyfish spiritual beast around him. However, just when this person was about to escape in fear, with a swish, a fishing line pierced through the void, and the 1,000 twining silk was instantly activated. With a swish, this person was tied up. Then, the void lines, along the fishing hook, hung on his body, and directly stole his vitality. Originally, the fishing rod Han Fei used was a mid-quality divine weapon, so ordinary peak-level sea spirits couldn't break free easily. With this hook, Han Fei directly controlled 11 people at once. 2 of them, because they had some special abilities, could actually block the void lines. And Han Fei pointed his finger, and the infinity water turned into a long dragon of 10,000 knives and rushed out in an instant. Han Fei felt his body shaking slightly, and he immediately realized that he had overdrawn too much. However, fortunately, at this moment a little vitality was replenished. The vitality of 11 people was being instilled into his body. Even if the vitality stolen by each person was very little, it was still an extremely abundant amount of vitality. The old turtle said, "What a waste, what a waste! You brat, you have a precious skill, but you don't concentrate on cultivation. These peak-level sea spirits have at most 1,000 years of vitality, and the least is more than 800 years of vitality. Although they don't have your physique aptitude, the vitality you have converted is too little. 1,000 years of lifespan has been forcibly converted into 1 or 2 years of vitality. It's simply too wasteful." Han Fei rolled his eyes and said, "What's wrong with this? Why can't I feel it?" The old turtle snorted and said, "When you enter the Tao, you can understand your own Tao, know life and death, and obtain the Tao. By then, you will naturally have a better understanding of lifespan and vitality." Han Fei curled his lips and said, It's still too early. What's wrong with 1 or 2 years? I can absorb 1,000 or 800 of them. Can't it replenish my vitality?" The old turtle disdainfully said, "If you were more proficient in this skill, you wouldn't have caused such a huge waste. Why don't I convert a little for you?" "Don't even think about it." Han Fei had long guessed the old turtle's idea. It was nothing more than to devour vitality. At this moment, thousands of sea demons were here, and they were all edible. However, he couldn't eat any of them. Was he greedy? Han Fei said, "You kill Yuandao and the turtle outside first. Isn't a body better than this little bit of life force? These are the vitality I used to save my life." The old turtle said, "Not necessarily enough." Han Fei curled his lips and smiled. "Whether it's enough or not, I'll suck these people dry first. By the way, old Yuan, since you know the Heaven Awakening Divine Technique, should I continue to use the Heaven Awakening Divine Technique later, or should I directly swallow these people?" The old turtle said leisurely, "Then you'd better use the Heaven Awakening Divine Technique. The Heaven Awakening Divine Technique helps her wake up and directly feeds her vitality. The quality of the vitality of ordinary peak-level sea spirits is far inferior to the Heaven Awakening Divine Technique." Hearing this, Han Fei immediately understood. He pulled all 11 of them over to his side. Han Fei directly threw the person who was not controlled by the void lines into the mouth of the 9-headed snake grass. Han Fei said, "This is for you. You eat first and then help me." Han Fei only needed to control the fishing rod with one hand. The void lines didn't need hands, so at this moment, he still had time to grab those people's sea-swallowing seashells. Because the thousand-mountain ancient realm itself lacked spiritual energy and energy. Therefore, those who came in would generally bring a lot of spiritual spring and spiritual fruits to assist in battle. Just over 10 people, Han Fei got more than 5,000 caddies of spiritual spring. Although it was less than 10,000 caddies, there were still thousands of people in this fog. Han Fei glanced at Shu Xiaoman. What's wrong with this girl? How could she run into the fog? It must be noted that the big array outside the Divine Child Peak hadn't been opened. Otherwise, there would be flashes of lightning and cracks in the void everywhere, and they wouldn't be able to resist it at all. Han Fei thought for a moment. Shu Xiaoman must have come with a task, right? I wonder if she has a lot of resources on her? Han Fei thought of something and said to her via voice transmission, "Shu Xiaoman, it's Han Fei. Do you have the water of life with you?" Based on the cooperation between him and Shu Xiaoman at the beginning, the Life Queen and the others were already sure that he was among the sea demons. Therefore, the people he knew showed up one after another. Why did this happen? In addition to protecting the Shuemu heaven, there should be something else. As soon as Shu Xiaoman rushed into the fog, she was stunned. There was nothing around her. There was no way back, no way forward. After flying for a long time, she didn't know where she had flown to. She didn't see anything, nor did she touch anything. Suddenly, Han Fei's voice sounded beside Shu Xiaoman, which cheered her up. "Han Fei, where are you?" Han Fei said, "Don't worry about where I am. Did the Life Queen or Jing ask you to send me a message?" Shu Xiaoman was stunned for a moment. "Yes, the Jing messenger asked us to bring you 30 drops of the water of life. The Jing messenger said that no more can be given. You have to figure out a way for the rest." Han Fei took a breath. "Give it to me quickly. Why didn't you give it to me when I first came in?" Shu Xiaoman said, "The Jing messenger said that if you didn't ask, she wouldn't give it to you. Where are you?" Han Fei said, "Snake grass, send me there." Shu Xiaoman was still looking around vigilantly. All of a sudden, he saw an incomparably large black shadow stretching over. Shu Xiaoman's whole body tensed up. What the hell is this? Just when Shu Xiaoman was about to freeze, she saw a huge snake head. No, it was just a weird demonic plant that looked like a snake head, appearing in front of her. And standing on the demonic plant, who else could it be but Han Fei? Gulp. Shu Xiaoman immediately swallowed. What did Han Fei do this time? Why did he come here? It was very good to have such a big demon plant. Han Fei said, "Give me the water of life. Also, go out and trick the sea demons of the Baibei Royal City and the blood demons of the Blood Sea Divine Wood to come in." Han Fei quickly explained the plan to young man Shu. Shu Xiaoman quickly took out her sea-swallowing seashell and threw it to Han Fei. "It's all in there. In case I die and get lost, I always have a lot of people around me." Han Fei took the sea-swallowing seashell and didn't even look at it. He looked at Shu Xiaoman and said, "Remember, you must act realistically. As long as they can be tricked into coming in, none of those guys can escape." Han Fei's words shocked Shu Xiaoman. It must be noted that only a part of the people had come in. There were more than 1,000 people from the two clans outside. Han Fei, however, showed a hint of ruthlessness. If it was so easy to enter the Divine Child Peak, he wouldn't have given the nine-headed snake grass a toy just now. As long as the nine-headed snake grass was willing to pay the price, none of the hundreds of people in the mist could escape. They would be killed in an instant. Han Fei stamped his feet and said, "Snake grass, cooperate with me and act." First update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 1234. In the midst of the Divine Child Peak, while Han Fei and Shu Xiaoman were talking, they had hunted and killed more than 20 people. According to the old turtle, he had probably replenished his lifespan for less than 30 years. This made Han Fei speechless. Sure enough, the Apocalypse Divine Art could replenish the lifespan of a slaughterhouse. Every time he used the Apocalypse Divine Art, he had to absorb the vitality of hundreds of people to replenish it. Sure enough, he hadn't practiced enough yet. At this moment, Han Fei stood on the head of the nine-headed snake grass and scanned it with his perception. After a long time, he looked at the people who were running around like headless flies. He was thinking about a problem. The sky-stealing technique and the Apocalypse Divine Art were a perfect match. One consumed lives while the other stole lives. In this way they formed a perfect complement. In a sense, if he entered the Apocalypse Great Path, he might be able to live forever. Even if he couldn't live forever, it shouldn't be a problem for him to live several times longer than others. For now, the Apocalypse Great Path was still very attractive to him. It wasn't as simple as a healing technique. It was like how spirit gatherers could not only gather spiritual energy but also control water, refine weapons, draw arrays, and so on. Who? Han Fei suddenly came back to himself and couldn't help but shake his head. At that moment, he was almost lost when he saw so many people here. Han Fei was a little shocked that he was distracted at this critical moment. This had never happened before. He was distracted in the face of a great battle? Han Fei hurriedly calmed himself down and shouted, "Shu Xiaoman, get ready!" Outside the Divine Child Peak, the three parties each occupied a direction, only 100 kilometers away from each other. The first batch of people agreed to enter mainly to test this place. Although there were many records about the 1,000-mountain ancient realm, there were too many mountains here. Basically, every mountain was guarded by special demonic plants. Therefore, although there were records about the abnormalities of the Divine Child Peak, they were not detailed. Suddenly, the mist trembled, and with a boom, a dazzling spark burst out. The mist was pierced, and some people saw the colorful light, which was blurred by the mist. A light melody sounded in the mist. Outside the Divine Child Peak, someone exclaimed, "What's that?" Someone said pervertedly, "It seems that someone is fighting." Although this blurry thing could cause a commotion among the crowd, it might not be able to lure people in. In the mist, Shu Xiaoman was shooting at a sea demon with a longbow in her hand. On the other side, 2 blood demons were trying to grab the dense aura. The sea demon brandished his harpoon and roared, "How dare you, blood demon, let go!" Shu Xiaoman shouted, "Put it down!" After saying that, Shu Xiaoman shot an arrow. The arrow was like a flying bird, rolling up the wind and lifting the fog. At this moment, many good people in the outside world were shocked. What is that? A divine weapon? Isn't that an embroidery needle? At this moment, it was wrapped in Han Fei's invincible will, shining with golden light. A human expert growled, "Wait, there's a sharp blade covered in frost beside it." The blood demon was overjoyed. Although the dense aura did not dissipate, Zhang Xian was unable to clearly see what it was. However, the people on his side got it. Suddenly, the sea demon in the middle of the battle roared, "Come in, all of you! Do you hear me? All of you, come in. There are 5 sea-quelling bizarre treasures here." Hiss! F***ck among the sea demons, Yu Hong looked around. Why was the Fish Dragon King not here? Why was Shui Hongyan not here? Only he was the strongest here. Even if the sea demons were divided according to their peak combat power, he could at least get 1 sea-quelling bizarre treasure. At this moment, Yu Hong's eyes turned cold. He had already regarded the sea-quelling bizarre treasure as his own. Who dared to take his treasure? Who dared to take it? As for the 1,000-mountain ancient realm? Yu Hong felt that searching for an opportunity to become a king was an opportunity to become a king. He knew that the sea-quelling bizarre treasure was a king's weapon that ordinary people couldn't get. Everyone was shocked. Before they rushed into the mist, Shu Xiaoman shouted, "People of the Waterwood Heaven, come in quickly. We can't let them succeed." "Buzz, buzz, buzz," a bug shouted. "Little man, hold on. My bug bow is coming." A large bird chirped and dove straight into the mist. The human beings had already seen Shu Xiaoman asking for help. How could they not go in? On the blood demon's side, countless people's faces changed drastically. Someone on their side got 2 sea-quelling bizarre treasures? Wasn't this too horrifying? Although some people were suspicious, isn't this a little too easy? Were the sea-quelling bizarre treasures just floating in the air? However, the dense aura, the battle scene, and the 2 glowing weapons that he had seen with his own eyes. They could tell at first glance that they were not ordinary weapons. They couldn't be faked. Besides, the battle was about to break out. It wasn't easy for them to take advantage of the sea-quelling bizarre treasures, and they couldn't let it go to waste. So, without any time to think, a group of blood demons rushed into the mist one after another. More than 2,000 people rushed into the Godchild Peak. How big was a mountain? Wouldn't it be a crowded scene if more than 2,000 people were crammed into this place? However, at the moment when these people rushed in, only the Insect Clan, the Sky Clan, the Tree Demons, and human beings from the Waterwood Heaven had a clear view. Because their direction was changed by the 9-headed snake grass, and they were all gathered together. Let them go to the Divine Child Peak? There was no way he could have done that. Unless they could provide a massive amount of vitality like Han Fei. Otherwise, without some real strength, the 9-headed snake grass wouldn't agree no matter how stupid it was. A group of people had activated their secret methods, carried longbows, possessed their spiritual beasts, and stepped on all kinds of contractual spiritual beasts, but they were all gathered together. Someone wondered, hey, where are the sea-quelling bizarre treasures? Where did they go? A insect clan member ran around in a daze. Where's the colorful light? Where's little man? Some of the sky race dived headfirst into the mist, only to emerge from the other side. Suddenly he exclaimed, "Something's wrong. There's something wrong with this space." For a moment there was a commotion and someone exclaimed, "Don't panic. Defend." However, he saw a huge shadow appear in the fog. Then, under the gaze of hundreds of people, they saw Han Fei and Shu Xiaoman standing on the 9-headed snake grass, which stunned them. Suddenly, a bug buzzed, "Han Fei, it's Han Fei." A big bird flew over. "Young man, Han Fei?" Someone was surprised. How did Han Fei get in? Shouldn't he be consolidating his cultivation? Someone said in shock, so, there's no sea-quelling bizarre treasure at all? Suddenly, a channel appeared, leading to the outside of the mist. Han Fei roared, "Leave all the sea demons and blood demons here to me." There should be nearly 1,000 sea demons and blood demons scattered everywhere outside. You need to hunt them. Swish. Swish, the embroidery needle and Snowmorn both floated to Han Fei's side. Han Fei grinned. Remember, don't kill the demon plants that are still alive. Give those demon plants that still have a chance to live some spirit spring and spirit fruit. A little treant also stood in the void. Are they from our clan? Han Fei nodded. Yes, the demon plants in the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm are all from our clan. Hua! Immediately, a big bird exclaimed, No wonder the undead creatures of our clan would stop us whenever we approached certain areas. A human sighed. Han Fei, can you do it alone? The more he spoke, the less confident he was, because he saw another 2 enormous snake-headed demon plants. Suddenly, someone said, Is this the legendary 9-headed snake grass? Han Fei stepped on the 9-headed snake grass. He didn't have time to chat with them. He said, Leave now and hunt the remaining sea demons and blood demons. I'll take care of everything here. With that, Han Fei disappeared into the mist. Young Tree Man looked back at Han Fei. She didn't know why Han Fei was with the legendary demon plants. However, Han Fei was obviously more than capable. Han Fei even asked her if she had the Spring of Life. Obviously, he had reached a tacit understanding with the static agent and even the Queen. They must be plotting something. As for himself, although he was just a small character in the middle of the transportation, if this matter was successful, wouldn't it mean that he had also made a contribution? Different from the Shui Mu Heaven, Yu Hong's team of sea demons and the blood demons who were all women were stunned. What the hell was this place? Where was the way? Wait for me. The 9 notes melody arrived. Chi La. At a spatial rift, a sea demon didn't even have time to react and was directly cut in half by the saber. Swish. Some blood demons were still lost. Suddenly, they found that a crisis was coming. Unfortunately, before she had a chance to react, she was hooked by a circle of silk threads, and a fish hook plunged deep into her body. Han Fei said, Punishing Saber, don't kill them. It's better to injure them. Yes, master. Han Fei was crazily devouring the vitality of these sea demons. Basically, he could completely suck a person dry in 5 minutes. Most of those who could avoid the void lines couldn't avoid lifesteal. As for those who couldn't be directly controlled by Han Fei, he would hook them with the fish hook. He pulled them back and stuffed them into the mouth of the 9-headed snake grass. In just half an hour, the vitality of the 9-headed snake grass was getting stronger and stronger, and the 9 snake heads had all returned to dark green. Although some parts were still a little rotten, it was much better than when Han Fei first saw it. At that time, to put it bluntly, it only had 1 head left. In the mist, panic was spreading. Someone exclaimed, No, there are no opportunities in this place at all. We've been fooled. However, no one could hear his exclamation at all. In Han Fei's perception, the space here had undergone strange changes. The range of space here was extended by the 9-headed snake grass to more than 1,000 kilometers. What was the specific principle? Han Fei didn't know. However, he could roughly confirm from the location where these people appeared that this was a closed space formation. If it trapped people in it, it could easily kill them with enough energy. Of course, for the current 9-headed snake grass, every bit of energy had to be used carefully. It didn't dare to waste it casually. At this moment, Han Fei was quite relaxed. He was repeatedly using the heaven stealing technique. He found that if he directly aimed at the spiritual heritage, the heaven stealing technique seemed to be able to reduce the spiritual heritage of the other party. If he only stole the vitality, then the vitality would be reduced. Han Fei even found that the heaven-stealing technique could even forcibly tear a little bit of the ownerless soul from the other party's head. This was a complete surprise. Looking at Yu Hong, who was roaring crazily, sweeping his spear and summoning a giant whale, Han Fei smiled. This is a rich man. He must have a lot of good things on him. Let's meet him. Second, asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 1235. Yu Hong knew that he had been fooled. However, he didn't know who was putting on a show for him. Was it an illusion? Otherwise, how could human beings, sea demons, and blood demons play a show together? Suddenly, Yu Hong found that the mist around him was a little less, and a path seemed to have been opened up. In the mist, he saw a drop of water that was changing constantly in the air. Huh! A drop of water? Yu Hong was certainly not a fool. How could a drop of water appear out of nowhere in such a mysterious place? Is it a rare treasure? Yu Hong's eyes lit up and he reached out to grab it. However, when he found that this drop of water was caught by him, he immediately realized that something was wrong. How could there be a free lunch in this world? To be able to achieve it so easily, either this drop of water was completely useless, or he had overlooked something. Hiss! Sure enough, Yu Hong felt a pain in his palm. He opened his palm and found that the drop of water was nowhere to be seen. There was a drop of blood in his palm. Not good. Yu Hong felt a heart-wrenching pain. His meridians were torn apart. His flesh and blood seemed to be fused with countless blades, and his whole body seemed to be cut by thousands of small knives. Ah! Who is it? On the 9-headed snake grass, Han Fei watched the scene quietly. The void lines had already buckled it. If you want to kill it, you must make it crazy first. However, the old turtle said, your drop of water seems to be a holy treasure. Han Fei was shocked. This was the second time he had heard the name Holy Treasure. Last time, it was Chun Huangyan who said it. Han Fei said, you've seen it many times. Why did you only recognize it now? The old turtle said, I've seen it many times, but you've always used it to turn into knives and self-destruct. I thought it was a special kind of sea-quelling bizarre treasure. But now it seems that your drop of water is too malleable. Don't you know how to use it? Good. Han Fei immediately took a breath. Then, how should I use it? Han Fei never knew how to use the infinity water. Even the self-detonation was guessed by him. At that time, he was afraid that this treasure would be destroyed. He heard the old turtle say, this is a drop of water, but it can also be countless drops of water. It can transform into weapons, it can self-detonate, and it has a myriad of forms. Its most important characteristic is its ability to change. I know. And then? The old turtle sneered and said, do you know that the forms of objects in the world, when developed to the extreme, are the most terrifying weapons? Why do you have to turn it into a saber that can be held by hand? Han Fei was a little confused. Aren't all sabers like that? The old turtle sneered. Have you experienced astral winds before? Have you ever experienced extreme speed? Does the blade have to be in the form that you can see? If a strand of water moves at an extremely fast speed, is it considered a saber? Buzz, Han Fei was shocked and seemed to understand something. He said, do you mean that I used it wrong? The old turtle sneered. This kind of changeable thing should be used at will. Because it is completely compatible with you, it is more convenient than your sea-quelling bizarre sword and rod. When used to the extreme, its power will not be weaker than theirs. Hearing the old turtle's words, Han Fei was shocked. Wasn't the case that the old turtle described to him just now a water gun? When the speed of spraying water reached the extreme, everything could be cut. Han Fei knew this. Immediately, Han Fei made the infinity water turn into a stream of particles and shoot out of Yu Hong's body with a puff. Because the speed was so fast, one of Yu Hong's thighs was cut off. The corner of Han Fei's mouth twitched, and he thought to himself, I'll take you as a test subject. No matter how stupid Han Fei was, he knew that the water saber that the old turtle talked about was a high-pressure water jet cutting. To become that kind of saber, the first thing that was needed was speed, and what produced this speed was pressure. This kind of attack required a certain spatial distance to achieve the acceleration of the infinity water. The principle was simple, but the operation was difficult. However, Han Fei thought to himself, can't I just turn the infinity water into a yin-yang wheel? As long as the rotation speed was high enough, the power that it burst out wouldn't be weak. Besides, Han Fei was very familiar with the supreme yin-yang wheel. After all, he had seen it countless times. When the infinity water turned into a wheel, in an instant, dazzling sparks appeared in the void. Because the speed was getting faster and faster, soon the sparks disappeared. Instead, there was a circle of black void cracks cut by the infinity water. No, before Yu Hong could react, he saw a crack in the void roll up and directly cut his body into pieces. A small half of his body was shredded by the void crack. For these so-called heavenly talents of the royal city, although Han Fei looked down on the Fish Dragon King, the Fish Dragon King was indeed the strongest. However, the Ichthyosaur King was indeed the strongest. Even when he launched a sneak attack, the Ichthyosaur King managed to escape for a while. At this moment, Yu Hong's death was completely within his plan. Once the infinity water entered the body, not to mention a heavenly talent at the peak level of the sea spirit realm, even a great demon at the peak level of the Tao-seeking realm wouldn't have a good end. God knew how big the shadow in Yu Hong's heart was before he died. All he did was grab a drop of water. He didn't even see a hair of the enemy before he died inexplicably. How desperate was he in his heart? 2 hours later, the number of sea demons and blood demons that died in Han Fei's hands had reached 200. According to the old turtle, his current vitality had been replenished by more than 200 years and less than 300 years. Han Fei felt that this was quite good. He could continue to absorb vitality. It wouldn't be a problem for him to use the Heaven Awakening Divine technique later. 8 hours later, on the Divine Child Peak, another beam of light burst out. At this moment, the 9-headed snake grass had completely recovered its former ferocious appearance. However, when it sensed the terrifying life force descending upon it, it still trembled slightly. The 9-headed snake grass felt that the fairy was likely to recover. This was the strongest life force replenishment he had ever received in all these years he had been holding on to it. During this period, there were still sea demons attracted by the Heaven Awakening Divine technique just now. However, the people of the Shuemu Heaven were not stupid. Led by young Shu-man, they thought that it was already very impressive for Han Fei to deal with thousands of sea demons alone, so they couldn't increase the pressure on Han Fei. On the way, there were strong masters of the Shuemu Heaven hunting them. There were very few sea demons that could really break through their hunting and come to the fog. This made Han Fei very depressed. More than 6 hours later, when Han Fei finished absorbing the vitality of the last sea demon in the fog, these sea demons didn't know that there were enemies in the fog until the moment the void lines found them. At this moment, Han Fei's vitality had just recovered to more than 1,500 years. However, after stealing lives again and again, Han Fei's proficiency and accuracy had been improved. As long as he spent some time on it, the next time the effect would definitely be better. At this moment, the 9 huge snake heads and Han Fei were looking at the lotus seat solemnly. They could already see that the water fairy was breathing slightly. And, with every breath of the water fairy, the spiritual energy on the Divine Child Peak would weaken a little. Han Fei held the sea-swallowing seashell in his hand, and threw 10 drops of the spring of life over. Looking at the rich vitality, Han Fei's heart was bleeding. Every drop of vitality was equivalent to 100 years of vitality. The 9-headed snake grass said, "Someone used to send me the spring of life, but not so much." Han Fei raised his eyebrows. "Someone used to send me the spring of life? Who?" The 9-headed grass shook its big head and said, Little Blossom will send it. Han Fei wondered, who is Little Blossom? Han Fei thought to himself, only the Life Queen can control the spring of life, right? However, it's unlikely that the Life Queen will come in person. Or, did the Life Queen specially send someone to deliver the spring of life? However, the Life Queen is also a king. What's her relationship with the Water Fairy? Since she can come in and deliver the spring of life to the Water Fairy, why not give her a little more at one time? Let the Water Fairy wake up? The old turtle said, You're overthinking it. Do you think it's easy for a king to save another king? Do you think the spring of life is like a yellow croaker that you can catch easily? Han Fei sighed. How rare is the spring of life? The old turtle said leisurely, Let's put it this way. Even if the Life Queen refines it day and night, she can only get 1 drop every 2 or 3 years at most. Do you think you only got 30 drops of the spring of life? Maybe that's what she has accumulated for hundreds of years. Wow! Han Fei gasped hard. So, it was indeed a great bargain for him to exchange resources with the Life Queen. Wouldn't this be equivalent to a king tier using several decades just to refine this so-called spring of life for himself? Thinking of this, Han Fei felt that he had indeed made a fortune. No wonder everyone said that his batch of resources wasn't enough. A drop of the spring of life was so precious. When the vitality was swallowed, another 10 drops of the spring of life were thrown over. Han Fei glanced at the remaining 10 drops. Immediately, he gritted his teeth and threw them all over. He wondered how much vitality the Water Fairy was lacking now. Then he might as well give it all to her. If it didn't work, he could go hunt some more people later and perform the apocalyptic divine technique again. If that didn't work, he would leave the 1,000-mountain ancient realm first. Next time, he would come back after plundering a huge amount of resources. Humph! Just as Han Fei and the 9-headed snake grass were looking forward to it, a soft moan suddenly came from the lotus. Chapter 1236. Han Fei and the 9-headed snake grass were refreshed. Didn't they pay such a high price just to wake up the Water Fairy? At the moment when the Water Fairy spoke, Han Fei continued to pour the tens of thousands of spiritual fruits and hundreds of thousands of caddies of spiritual spring he got from thousands of people into the lotus under the Water Fairy. Even if Han Fei used his ass to think, he would know that after paying such a huge price, the Water Fairy had only just regained consciousness. Therefore, anything that could be digested, such as spirit fruits and spirit spring water, could be thrown into the lotus seat. As for whether he would become poor or not, how poor would he be? It didn't matter. As long as he left the 1,000-mountain ancient realm, he had plenty of ways to make money. After all, his level was different now. When he was a hidden fisher, he needed all kinds of ambushes to make money, and his opponents might be poor too. As for law enforcers, he had no chance to make money. Now that he was an explorer, he could rob dozens or even hundreds of people from a Tao-seeking state demon beast. This was completely different from the speed of making money. When they became explorers, they wouldn't be interested in ordinary resources. But not Han Fei. Ordinary spiritual spring and spiritual fruits were still delicious in his eyes. Feeling the restlessness of the 9-headed snake grass, Han Fei immediately stomped his feet. Stop wandering around. In the outside world, almost everyone was attracted by the Divine Child Peak. Because the spiritual energy and energy there were too rich. In the Shuemu heaven, many people looked at the Divine Child Peak. Someone said in surprise, What did Han Fei do? How can there be such rich spiritual energy? An insect replied with a buzzing voice, I can sense boundless energy. If I can eat this energy, I can pass the tribulation. Another sea demon shouted, It's all the Shuemu heaven's scheme. They ambushed us on the way. Don't be fooled. On a certain mountain, Yang Ruoyun was leading a team of people to look for treasures. Because she didn't go to the Divine Child Peak at all, their enemies were only those rotten demon plants and undead insects. Although they had both suffered losses, they had looted a lot of treasures. At this moment, Yang Ruoyun was on a mountain top, stepping on a dirty black petal. The flower that was like a trumpet had completely fallen at this moment. Someone said, "Ruoyun, should we go? The exploding chi over there was too dense. 2 golden pillars of light descending from the sky. Something big must have happened." Yang Ruoyun shook her head. No. The grander the scene was, the more chaotic the people were, and the more one couldn't easily fight for it. Unless you have absolute confidence, don't even think about such a great opportunity for no reason. Yang Ruoyun was not the only one who said the same thing. On the various mountain ranges in the outside world, people often came and went. Some people were here to seek treasures, so why did they have to make him search for that faintly discernible opportunity? He was determined not to go. How many people would die for the opportunity to become a king? At this moment, Han Fei had already come down from the head of the hydra grass and was 10 meters away from the lotus seat. Teacher, in any case, Han Fei had benefited a lot from studying in the 100,000 mountains for 4 years. It was not an exaggeration to say that his strength had doubled. The Water Immortal was the only one among the Beast Kings who gave him lessons every day. Their daily interactions made them even closer than the Beast Kings and the others. Who? An extremely light and faint voice rang out leisurely. Han Fei was overjoyed. Me, Han Fei. Oh no. Wang Han. Who, the divine child peak, which was covered in rich spiritual energy, suddenly disappeared under the Water Immortal's breath. In an instant, the spiritual energy disappeared without a trace, and so did the energy. The 30 drops of the spring of life had been completely absorbed. The Water Immortal slowly tilted her head, opened her eyes, and looked at Han Fei. The two of them looked at each other for about a minute, and then the Water Immortal slowly sat up. Han Fei didn't know how many years she had slept, but her body didn't seem stiff at all. The Water Immortal was extremely calm. She put her legs on the edge of the lotus seat and looked at the lotus seat that only had 1 petal left. After a moment of silence she said, "So, 80,000 years have passed." Han Fei was dumbfounded. What the hell is this? Does it mean that 1 petal represents 10,000 years? The water deity sighed and turned to look at Han Fei, ignoring the 9-headed snake grass that was dancing excitedly. The Water Immortal asked, "Little Wang Han?" Han Fei nodded. "Teacher." The Water Immortal sighed slightly. "So, you were born in this era?" Han Fei immediately said, "Teacher, how long has it been since I left the Age of Doom?" How long has it been since I left?" The Water Immortal gently opened her mouth. "It should be almost 100,000 years." Han Fei took a deep breath. 100,000 years. He had walked in the river of time for 100,000 years? However, Han Fei didn't fall into shock but hurriedly asked, "Teacher, the Beast King, the Giant King, and the Heavenly Crystal, are they?" The Water Immortal said. "The Beast King went east, trying to find a way to save the world. The Heavenly Crystal and the Giant King died before me. Little Wang Han, how many resources did you give me?" Han Fei grinned. Not much, just a little more than 2 billion points of spiritual energy, 30 drops of the spring of life, and 2 apocalyptic divine techniques." Now that he had finally woken up, he had to show off. However, the Water Immortal was slightly surprised. "Apocalyptic divine technique? The path of a spirit gatherer? Have you already embarked on this path?" Han Fei was about to respond, when the Water Immortal immediately said, "No, you have to abolish your own realm and find a new path." Han Fei was stunned. "Huh!" The Water Immortal seemed to be a little anxious. The great Daos conflict with each other. If there are too many people on a great Dao, the further you go, the more difficult it will be, and the probability of death is very high. Han Fei's heart skipped a beat. This is the same as what the old turtle said. It's called attraction. Han Fei hurriedly said, "I haven't embarked on this path yet." I just used the apocalyptic divine technique. The water immortal was surprised. You can use the apocalyptic divine technique without embarking on this path? Han Fei thought to himself, how should I make up this story? Could it be that I can deduce 5, 6, 7, 8 great Daos in a few minutes? Or can I use the great Dao as a combat skill? The water immortal, however, was only slightly surprised and then returned to normal. She glanced at Han Fei. Did you hide your strength? Why are you only an explorer? Han Fei said in surprise, You can even see that? The water immortal nodded. This is my world. Of course I can. Han Fei smiled bitterly. It's only been 4 years since I came back from the river of time. The water immortal nodded and then glanced around. Why, has my world become a secret realm? Han Fei shrugged. Master, don't mind the details. Those insects, the Sky Clan, the human beings, and the tree demons are all on our side. The rest of the sea demons and blood demons are all enemies. Since you're awake, why don't you suck them dry? The water immortal glanced at Han Fei. Forget it. You do it. I'm only awake now, but my real body hasn't. Han Fei was stunned. Then who should I talk to now? My soul? The water immortal said, Although I know you've gathered a lot of spiritual energy, and vitality, I've become a king. Only when you reach this realm will you know how terrifying this realm is. So, your resources are not enough to wake up my real body. Han Fei glared at her. What about killing the hundreds of people outside? Han Fei's eyes widened. What if we kill the 800 people outside? Also, don't think about restoring my real body. Also, don't think about restoring my original body. Instead, you need to find my main body, release the 9-headed snake grass, and find a way to devour my main body. Ah! Stunned, Han Fei quickly said, No, Master, wait a moment. You want me to swallow you? Aqua Deity curled her lip. What do you mean you'll swallow me? Take as much of my life force, strength, and soul as you can take. I've chosen the wrong path. Even if I don't fall into a deep slumber, I will definitely fall in the battle for the throne. If that's the case, I might as well recultivate. Recultivate? The water immortal said, Do you think I'm seeking death? Have you forgotten that I once told you? Demon plants are the living creatures with the longest lifespans? Sometimes withering was also rebirth. Although the process is painful, the final direction of the great Tao is bright. In his heart, the old turtle's voice said, Boy, do you really know this person? You actually crossed the river of time? How did you do it? However, Han Fei ignored the old turtle, who was still confused. He heard the old turtle say, This demon plant is really decisive. It gave up the great Tao so easily. Even its main body has to be regrown. Such courage is enough for it to become an emperor. Han Fei quickly came back to himself. Master, can't I take you out now? The sooner we get out, the sooner we can recultivate. The water immortal shook his head. No, it's not appropriate. If I leave, my main body will wither. By then, the 9-headed snake grass and the others will all die. I still have to control this world. With the energy and vitality you provided this time, I can probably maintain this world in a conscious state for about 100 years. As long as you can find my main body within 100 years, it will be fine. Han Fei couldn't help but be confused. White lotus flower. Where can I find it? The water immortal's mind moved, and the last petal of the lotus leaf floated down. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a small petal the size of a palm. The water immortal said, When I died, there was a mark. However, I don't know where my main body is after 80,000 years. However, if it is within 10,000 kilometers of my lotus leaf, I should be able to sense it. Han Fei. Han Fei held the lotus petal and scanned it with his perception, only to be stunned. Han Fei said helplessly, Master, aren't you expressing your position a little too casually? It's 5 million kilometers, isn't it? The water immortal said noncommittally, You've become a king, so the range of your perception is naturally very large. Han Fei, Vertex. Chapter 12:37. After she woke up, the Water Immortal explained her situation in a few words. At least, at the moment when she woke up, she didn't feel too regretful. In the end, someone survived in the innumerable mountains. Furthermore, he had lived for 100,000 years. Putting away the lotus petals, Han Fei asked, "Teacher, why are there only 1,000 mountains left in the 100,000 mountains?" The Water Immortal said softly, "Don't call me teacher. I'm old. I slept for 80,000 years, but it doesn't mean I'm over 100,000 years old. I'm actually only 20,000 years old. Call me sister." Han Fei was confused. "You've slept for 80,000 years. Why are you still so naughty? You're 20,000 years old, and you want me to call you sister?" "I'm only in my 20s. The Water Immortal said. "The 100,000 mountains couldn't stop them. About 1,000 years after you left, the 100,000 mountains joined hands with the City of Justice to fight against the sea monsters again." But what?" The Water Immortal said. "You should know about the Immortal Palace, right?" Han Fei nodded. "Yes." The Water Immortal said. "Little Ling Lan found the thing you mentioned, the floating stone. However, the appearance of the floating stone intensified the war. The most direct manifestation was that the sea monsters went crazy. The Beast King tried to pass the King's Tribulation to resist the sea monsters. At that time me, the Heavenly Crystal, the Giant King, the Divine Sun, and little Ling Lan didn't dare to leave. Unfortunately, they still took advantage of the situation. The Giant King died on the spot. The Heavenly Crystal killed everyone but was killed by a king." "A king?" Han Fei asked in surprise. "A king took action?" The Water Immortal nodded. "That's when we found out. There was a group of even stronger experts fighting outside. They were stronger, and the number of venerables they led was also greater. The Beast King passed the tribulation successfully. The Giant King and the Heavenly Crystal died on the spot. I was responsible for cleaning the sea area, so nothing happened. Little Ling Lan was seriously injured and was saved by a strong master. The Divine Sun stopped the king alone and went missing." Shocked, Han Fei quickly asked, "What happened next?" The Water Immortal looked at Han Fei deeply. "Later, although we found the floating stone, we didn't have enough. Because the Beast King became a king, the sea monsters sent king-level masters. The Beast King had no choice but to go east and take away the other king. He never came back. I'm the only one left to guard the 100,000 mountains." Han Fei took a deep breath. He didn't know this part of history at all. However, according to Water Fairy's description, the situation must have been very difficult. Han Fei's voice was slightly hoarse. "Where's Shiman Linglan?" Water Immortal sighed and said, "Little Ling Lan was ambushed by the sea monsters during a battle for the floating stone and died. When little Ling Lan died, I was also surrounded and heavily injured." Han Fei knew that this was the battle that destroyed the City of Justice. He could not help but frown. "Where is the Immortal Palace?" Han Fei couldn't help but wonder. According to the Time Dragon Carp, his old body was born 100,000 years ago. That was when he had just arrived at U City. In other words, there were already immortal palaces at that time. However, there seemed to be something wrong with the Immortal Palace at that time, right? The scene of old Han wielding a knife and staining the bed with blood was still vivid in his mind. Could it be that, after a few thousand years, the Immortal Palace had changed again? Also, did the 100,000 mountains belong to the Inyang Heaven or the Waterwood Heaven? After all, it should have been his mother's statue standing in the city of Yu. Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "Did the sea god take action in the Immortal Palace?" Water Immortal shook her head. "No, no one has seen the sea god. At that time, we saw a strong master in the Immortal Palace leading a group of venerable puppet corpses." Han Fei thought to himself, "Sure enough, as I expected. At that time, something had already happened to my mother." Han Fei pondered for a moment. So that's how it is. However, Water Immortal chuckled. Don't overestimate the immortal palace. More than 10,000 years later, about 20,000 years later, I had already become a king. During one of the expeditions, the 100,000 mountains and the City of Justice were beaten to the point where the earth veins were damaged and split apart. I forcibly accommodated 1,000 mountains, which was already my limit. It was also at that time that I was seriously injured and fell into a deep sleep. However, during my deep sleep, I woke up once. Han Fei suddenly raised his head. Water Immortal chuckled. Who gave you the spring of life? Han Fei widened his eyes and said, The Life Queen, the King, and the Master of the Waterwood Sky. Water Immortal said with a faint smile, My disciple, your junior sister, is a peerless heavenly talent. When I was sleeping, she woke me up. Pooh! Han Fei almost spat out a mouthful of blood. He felt that his head was buzzing. F***ck, I didn't do anything. I just crossed the river of time and found a master, but now I have a junior sister who is a king? No wonder the nine-headed snake grass called her Little Flower. He thought to himself, who is Little Flower? Now it seems that she must be the Life Queen. That's right. If it weren't for the Life Queen, Water Immortal wouldn't have been able to live until now. Gulp. Han Fei couldn't help but swallow. This relationship is too F***king outrageous. Should I F***king acknowledge this senior sister relationship? Or not? If I do, will I be slapped to death by the Life Queen? Han Fei couldn't help but ask, Well, can I acknowledge them as sisters? Water Immortal chuckled. It's up to you. Little Flower should be a good girl. No, is Little Flower her nickname? Water Immortal said, Yes. Her real name is Muwuhua, a fig tree. Han Fei. Han Fei really wanted to ride on her coattails. He couldn't help but ask, Well, does my junior sister know me? Water Immortal said, She knows that she has a senior brother, but she doesn't know who he is. I didn't tell her your story. Back then, I asked her if humans were living in the sky now. She said that they live in trees. I thought to myself, maybe it's not your time yet, so I didn't tell her. Han Fei's lips twitched and he scratched his head. They live in trees now too. Huh. Water Immortal was stunned for a moment. Why do they still live in trees? Han Fei thought to himself, How can I explain it to you? He said, Well, it's complicated. I can only say that the lifestyles of different palaces are different. Water Immortal nodded slightly, not particularly curious. They continued to chat for about half an hour, when Water Immortal suddenly frowned. There are strong experts among the sea demons. Someone just killed the ice snake vine. Then, the water deity looked at Han Fei. Enough chit-chat. Help me kill those sea demons. Also, do you want these materials that have already withered? Han Fei thought for a moment. Not for now. Now, except for weapons and materials above the sea-quelling bizarre treasure level, I don't lack anything else. Master, I'll go first. However, I won't kill all these sea demons. I need to let some of them out to cooperate with me. Han Fei turned back into the appearance of the Fish Dragon King. Because he used the art of deception and the Beast King technique just now, he didn't use the art of evolution. Therefore, at this moment, he was still a sea demon in essence. Huh! Water Immortal said in surprise. Why do I feel that you are a sea demon? Han Fei grinned. I have a great technique that can completely transform into a sea demon or even a mermaid. Water Immortal certainly wouldn't doubt it. Otherwise, Han Fei wouldn't have given up such a huge amount of resources to save himself. Muwuhua wouldn't have given him so much spring of life. Water Immortal said, Go! The sooner you find my real body, the better it will be for you. I don't know how my real body is now. But for you, it's definitely a huge opportunity. Besides, I, the original owner, will help you. It will be of great help to your growth. Han Fei grinned. Got it. Then Han Fei patted one of the snake heads of the nine-headed snake grass. I'm going to kill the rest of the sea demons first. Now that the water immortal was alive, Han Fei felt much better. When he first heard from the heavenly vine that water immortal was still alive, he was very nervous and excited. He thought, in this world, only demonic plants can live for 100,000 years without dying. Oh no, there are also turtles. Han Fei thought, apart from the ordinary turtles, most of the turtles I've encountered are extraordinary. For example, the rock-holding turtle carried the sea-quelling bizarre treasure and taught the gods scaring painting. For example, the old turtle on the Scattered Stars Island carried the corpse of a king. For example, the old turtle, the primitive emperor, had become an emperor. How terrifying was that? At this moment, the old turtle said, "If what she said is true, then this is really a great opportunity for you. The demon plant focuses on the body. She has given up the body of the great Tao, which is undoubtedly a shocking treasure to you. Such a fortuitous encounter can be considered a top-notch fortuitous encounter in the vast ocean." Han Fei smiled. "You still expect me to grow stronger after I get it?" The old turtle said lightly, "I've accepted it. A person like you will either fall or become a first-rate demon. I can help you grow. By then, I have my own means, and you won't kill me." Han Fei grinned. "Then we'll see." Outside the Divine Child Peak, Han Fei stood proudly in the void, his perception sweeping around. After a while, his eyes focused on a mountain not far away. There was a blood demon fighting with a world-shaking bellflower, and the sound of the bell rumbled in all directions. Han Fei roared at the sky and secretly activated the soul-suppressing roar of beast. His voice covered more than 3,000 kilometers. Han Fei roared, "How dare you ambush me, slaughter my subordinates, and ruin the lives of many people from the Baibei royal city? Today, I'll fight to the death with your blood sea divine wood city." Who Climax. Chapter 1238. Who is the Dragon King? Who is so shameless as to call himself the Dragon King? The birds and bugs in Shui Mutian began to buzz again. Of course, they had seen the Fish Dragon King, so they could probably guess who it was. Only Shu Xiaoman was shocked. "How long has it been? Those more than 1,000 people have already died?" Suddenly, Shu Xiaoman's body stiffened. This was incredible. She admitted that Han Fei was very powerful, but didn't Han Fei need energy to fight? Didn't he need spiritual energy? That was not more than 100 people, but 1,000 or even hundreds of people. As for why Shu Xiaoman thought it was Han Fei when the Fish Dragon King shouted, what a joke! Han Fei had been beside the Fish Dragon King and said hello to her. Now, Han Fei could kill more than 1,000 people. He had been with the Fish Dragon King for so long in disguise. How could the Fish Dragon King still be alive? Shu Xiaoman didn't believe it. She felt that, not to mention Han Fei's unpredictable speed and strength, the disguise technique that could even fool a venerable was enough to make her blood freeze. It was like, you hang out with your friends all day long, but the friend you thought was a siren. How scary would that be? When the words, "I'm the Dragon King," appeared, Shu Xiaoman knew that this person was Han Fei. There was no doubt about it. The sea demons were all dumbfounded. They didn't know what had happened. Yu Hong and Shui Hongyan, who were familiar with the Fish Dragon King, had been killed by him. There was no one here who had come from King's City. Even if these two people were not dead yet, what was the Fish Dragon King's character? Arrogant, conceited, and petty. Han Fei's performance of "I'm the Dragon King" was absolutely perfect. On the other hand, within the mountains, there was a person whose expression sank. He frowned as he listened to the words that were floating in the air. If Han Fei were here, he would be surprised. "Isn't this Yu Keiling? Why hasn't she died yet?" To Han Fei's surprise, Lan Shuer, who he thought had died long ago, was sitting cross-legged and recovering at this moment. And Yu Keiling's face was dark at this moment. The Fish Dragon King is still alive? So, is Yu Hanjia dead or still alive? That's right, at the last moment, he made a move with the intention of saving the people and killing the traitor. In the end, he was confused by the strange melody, and at the last moment, he seemed to see Yuhanjia making a move. In the end, if he hadn't fought fiercely and released his spiritual beast, he would have died. Yukaling felt that the chances of Yuhanjia surviving were not high. At that time, he should have been in a similar situation as him. If he didn't have any special methods, he shouldn't have survived. He was the one who had discovered that person. He had invited him to join the patrol team and had been selected along with him. At first, Yukaling thought that the Fish Dragon King had also fallen. After all, that strange demonic sound was simply impossible to guard against. It was as if it could evoke the desire in one's heart, and one would unknowingly fall into an illusion. The sudden appearance of the Ichthyosaur King had informed the thousand-mountain ancient realm in such a furious manner. It could be seen how furious he was, however. Yukaling did not intend to continue following the Ichthyosaur King. This person was arrogant, conceited, and indifferent. He was not worth following. On the sea demon's side, many people were stunned. When they came in, these sea demons actually knew 3 names. The Ichthyosaur King, Yuhong, Shui Hongyan. Among them, the Ichthyosaur King had the highest status. He was the heavenly talent of the royal city and the most distinguished person on this trip. At this moment, he was forced to such an extent by a group of blood demons? Immediately, a sea demon took a deep breath. Something big has happened. It seems that something big has happened. Someone sneered. What did I say before? That kind of extremely terrifying fortuitous encounter must not be fought for. Do you see it now? The strongest prodigy on our side is already enraged to such an extent. You can see how badly he has been tricked. Someone said, then, should we go over and help him? These people were all speechless. Someone said, is there something wrong with your brain? How could he be so angry? Take a guess. How many people have fallen? Think about it again. If the Ichthyosaur King could suffer such a loss, do you think those blood demons are easy to deal with? Everyone shook their heads. That person said, that's it. Anyway, I don't want to die. I'm here to seek opportunities. As for the blood demons, many people were dumbfounded. Wait, what's going on here? What kind of people did they kill? How many people did they kill? How could he be so crazy? Yang Ruoyun, who was reclaiming a mountain, asked her companions, has it been a day since we came in? Her companions said, I don't think so. Looking at the time, it has been almost 16 hours. Yang Ruoyun held 2 blades that looked like moons and looked in the direction of the Divine Child Peak. She said slowly, something doesn't seem right. The spiritual chi and the light mist have been gone for a long time. Why are there so few people now? Why are there so few places where there are battles? Someone said, maybe it's because the distance is too far. After all, we are walking on the edge, not the center at all. Yang Ruoyun shook her head. Something is wrong. It's too quiet. We don't even feel the void tremble. Also, one thing is very obvious. There are so many mountains in the 1,000-mountain ancient realm and countless demonic plants. If we don't deliberately hunt the special creatures that are still alive, it's actually not very dangerous. However, we've passed 7 mountains nearby, right? Apart from encountering 2 sea monsters and 3 insects, I didn't encounter anyone else. Yang Ruoyun said, let's go. Everyone, follow me back and leave the 1,000-mountain ancient realm. Someone was confused and asked in surprise, Ruoyun, everything is going well for us. Why are we leaving? Yang Ruoyun said, you can have many opportunities, but you only have one life. I don't feel right. If you want to continue, I'll go back by myself. Ever since he became the Fish Dragon King, Han Fei felt refreshed. He scanned with his senses and found that there were 5 half-mermaid sea demons 800 kilometers away in a mine at the bottom of the sea. It seemed that they had just been through a battle. 2 of them were wounded and fled here. Inside the mine, a sea demon said solemnly, thank you for your warning, Master Dragon King. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Someone looked at the soil that was being turned over and said, "What should we do? We can't stay here for long. Otherwise, the undead creatures would come out from all directions. By then, we won't be able to escape." Someone shouted in a low voice, "We have to go back and run to the entrance." "Huh, who's there?" Suddenly, they all looked around and scanned with their senses. They were surprised at first, then pleasantly surprised. Someone said in surprise, "Master Dragon King. It seems that he's found us." Swish. Han Fei used the star teleportation technique. He wanted to use the closed distance technique, but he didn't know how to. It seemed that the closed distance technique was the Fish Dragon King's law enforcement ability. Of course. Now, Han Fei certainly wouldn't ask the Fish Dragon King. Just for these small fries? It wasn't worth his time. More than 200 kilometers were covered in the blink of an eye. Han Fei stood in the mine, looked at them, and suddenly roared, "Son of AB** T6 everyone." Han Fei suddenly roared, which stunned the 5 of them. Were they ambushed again? By the time the 5 people realized that they were in a life-and-death crisis, it was already too late. In the end, the void lines tightened around them, and they found that they could no longer move. In the next moment, Han Fei said, "You've committed the most heinous crimes. The battle ahead is fierce, and you're running away? You're a disgrace to the sea demons. Today, I'll grant you a glorious return." Pooh! 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 After killing these people, Han Fei flashed out of the mine and said casually to the void, "Teacher, you can keep the resources for yourself if there are any. I'll have plenty of opportunities when I get out." In the void, a voice responded, "Call me sister." Han Fei. Han Fei's strategy was actually very simple. When he came here, he went straight to the Divine Child Peak after learning from the Heavenly Vine that the Water Fairy was still alive. At this moment, the Water Fairy also saw him, and a lot of his questions were answered. He wanted to give all the resources in the 1,000-mountain ancient realm to the Water Fairy. So, Han Fei went straight to the exit without hesitation. At the same time, he said, "Teacher, can you control the undead creatures? Force them to the entrance." The Water Fairy nodded. "Yes." Then, Han Fei roared at the sky, "Everyone from the Baibei Royal City, gather at the exit. Today, I'm going to block the road and kill everyone. Those who don't come will be killed." At the same time, many sea demons and blood demons who were fighting with the Water Fairy all stopped fighting. Mainly because the human beings stopped fighting. Shu Xiaoman roared, "Let's go. We can't lose the entrance. If the entrance closes, we'll be trapped here." A large bird flew beside Shu Xiaoman. "Shouldn't we sit back and reap the benefits?" A human being soared into the sky and shot an arrow at a half-mermaid. "Yes, Xiaoman, if they want to fight, let them fight. Isn't that a good idea?" Shu Xiaoman shook her head. "No, I have my own plans." A centipede crawled in the air very fast and reached them in the blink of an eye. "Let's go. Anyway, the mountain behind has been occupied by Han Fei. As for the rest of the sea demons and blood demons, their number is about the same as ours, right?" Insectide? Suddenly, a bug shrieked and everybody looked at it, because in his perception, there was an overwhelming black mass of undying bug race. He had no idea where they came from. In any case, they just appeared. A bug exclaimed, "Wow, the real danger of the 1,000-mountain ancient realm is the insectide." Chirp, chirp. Not only the insectide, but countless undead birds also flew across the sky, blocking the sun. Shu Xiaoman was lost for words. What did Han Fei do this time? Top. Chapter 1239. Not long after Yang Ruoyun and the others ran out, while they were still on their way, they could see countless undead creatures on the surface of the sea, on the mountains, and in the sky, besieging them. Although the Water Fairy had just woken up, this was her world. Although he could descend with his will and directly kill all the sea demons here. However, this kind of consumption was meaningless in the Water Fairy's eyes. Besides, if she really did that, It might ruin Han Fei's plan. Seeing that Han Fei was still acting, the water fairy couldn't help but sneer. So, this kid is quite naughty. On a certain mountain, a red-robed blood demon was fighting with a red flame reed. Suddenly, a large number of rotten red flame reeds popped up from the land all over the mountain. Chilla! Flames were burning. That wasn't enough. Tens of thousands of undead insects surged up. The man tried to fly away, but a flame fell from the sky. The red flame reed seemed very excited. This whip caused the void to explode. Then, its vines coiled around that person like snake. Together with the thousands of insect race beings, it dragged him into the pile of insects. Ho! The man summoned his associated spirit, the old turtle. However, as soon as the turtle came out, it was bitten dozens of times by a bunch of undead insects. Its head and limbs were all locked up. After crushing more than 200 insects, it was pinned down by a large area of red flame reed. Then, it was bitten to death. It wasn't until this moment that the people who entered the Thousand Mountain ancient realm realized how terrifying this world was. Those who were sent to the Thousand Mountains ancient realm could be considered geniuses, so they had the confidence to be proud. However, when the number of ordinary undead creatures reached a certain level, their so-called confidence couldn't withstand a single blow. Han Fei was extremely fast. Even when he clearly sensed that there were sea demons and blood demons nearby, he didn't deliberately stop. In his opinion, a lot of people from the Baibei Royal City and the Blood Sea Divine Wood City had died this time. At the entrance, he could only kill a few dozen at most in the state of the Fish Dragon King. After all, there were still heavenly talent. However, this was enough. If most of the people from Whitebell's Royal City and Blood Sea Divine Wood City were dead, leaving only the people from Shuemu Heaven alive, it would definitely arouse the suspicion of the two royal cities. When Han Fei was only 10,000 kilometers away from the entrance, Yang Ruoyun and the others happened to appear in his perception. There were only 6 of them. Han Fei was delighted. The enemy was very fast. Han Fei hardly wasted any time on the way. However, Yang Ruoyun and the others had run ahead of him. They must have discovered that something was amiss. Han Fei smiled. Interesting. Let's kill a few of them first. Han Fei had mixed feelings about Yang Ruoyun. When he was in the level 3 fishery, this woman taught him a lot. But as for a blood feud, it wasn't to that extent. After all, this woman was no match for him back then. She was just a little more scheming. Now, Han Fei was looking forward to it. How much has this woman grown? She didn't know why, but ever since she entered the Thousand Mountains ancient realm, she had felt that something was amiss. At this moment, she had been spreading out her perception. She was mainly worried that some people would hunt near the entrance instead of hunting for treasures themselves. Although the first day hadn't passed yet, and there shouldn't be many such people, there shouldn't be none. Suddenly, in her perception, she saw a figure, carrying a red spear, flying over at a terrifying speed. The Fish Dragon King? Whether it was in the Blood Sea Divine Wood City or the White Bells Royal City. Those who could be on the Heavenly Talent list were never simple. Since the Fish Dragon King was ranked 10th on the Sea Spirit Heavenly Talent list of the White Bells Royal City, he must have something extraordinary. For Yang Ruoyun and the others, this was the most basic information, and they would definitely know it. Not only Yang Ruoyun, but almost everyone had discovered Han Fei. This surprised Han Fei. From the moment he was discovered, he must have been more than 400 kilometers away, right? This meant that the blood demon represented by Yang Ruoyun and the others had a strong soul, even stronger than that of ordinary heavenly talents. The transformation of the soul strength was actually in the tribulation. The reason why Han Fei's soul strength didn't seem to increase much during the tribulation was that Han Fei's soul strength was too high before. So the improvement of the soul strength after the tribulation didn't seem to be very exaggerated. Han Fei didn't have time to memorize the god-scaring painting. Otherwise, the strength of his soul would definitely be improved again. The moment Han Fei appeared, someone exclaimed, "It's the Fish Dragon King!" Yang Ruoyun shouted in a low voice, "The form of a Millennium Snapper." Bam, bam, bam. As soon as Han Fei appeared, he saw Yang Ruoyun and the others all turned into Millennium Snappers, and their speed doubled in an instant. Squeak! When Yang Ruoyun and the others in their fish form swam, the strange melody they produced seemed to be able to cause their blood vessels to expand. There seemed to be a strange mist in front of him. Illusion. Han Fei smiled disdainfully. If it wasn't a top-level illusion technique, how could they confuse him with the strength of a peak-level sea spirit? This was basically impossible. Moreover, his cultivation level was higher than theirs. Swish. Not only was Han Fei not confused, but his speed even increased by 30%. Yang Ruoyun said to him, "Prepare for battle. Directly enter the battle state." Squeak! The 6 big fish cried out at the same time, and then all kinds of companion spirits rushed out. A big dark green cuttlefish sprayed black ink directly at the place where Han Fei was. One of them shouted, "Don't fight. Go away. In my black domain space, he will fall into an absolutely unconscious state." However, at the moment when they were about to escape, they suddenly heard a sneer. "Ha! What do you think I am? You want to trap me with a mere cuttlefish ink sac? How dare you?" Han Fei held the red spear in his hand and swung the Monkey King 3000 strike. Bam! 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 If I want to disguise myself, I'll make it look real. I can still fight even if I don't use the void lines for now. In just an instant, the Millennium Snapper's bones were smashed into pieces, and the airwaves blasted dozens of kilometers away. Han Fei didn't stop. Seeing that the others were still sprinting and didn't have the time to quickly defend, he stabbed the instant mystic spear. Gotcha! Puff! Another person, together with her snail companion spirit, was directly stabbed and exploded. The Fish Dragon King was good at using the close-distance technique, Dragon Roar, and Spear like a dragon. Han Fei could do that too. He was just trying to look cool. Although he didn't have the Dragon King's bloodline, he could imitate all kinds of creatures with the water vein technique. Yang Ruoyun and the others were shocked. What kind of F***king combat power is this? In the blink of an eye, 2 peak-level sea spirits died without even a chance to resist. The remaining people were shocked. Is this the 10th on the heavenly talent list of the Baibei Royal City? There was a similar list in the Blood Sea Divine Wood City. But different from the Baibei Royal City, the Blood Sea Divine Wood City didn't distinguish between the frontline battlefield and the Royal City. As long as one was a Millennium Snapper, one could live in the Royal City every day. In the Blood Sea Divine Wood City, there were also heavenly talents of the same level, but they weren't as violent as Han Fei. In fact, none of them, including Yang Ruoyun, had actually fought with the top 10 heavenly talent. So, they didn't know how strong Han Fei was at this level. At this critical moment, Yang Ruoyun suddenly shouted, "Blood Poison Curse Technique." As soon as Han Fei stepped out, weird runes burst out from the 4 of them. Han Fei was about to take action, but he suddenly stopped. Something's wrong. There seems to be something wrong with Yang Ruoyun's spell. Han Fei wasn't afraid of these so-called spells. If they could complete the challenge of a big realm with spells alone, the Blood Sea Divine Wood City would have already unified the Water Wood Heaven. The Baibei Royal City wouldn't be a problem at all. However, the spell was activated, and a large number of red, twisted runes tried to wrap him up. The moment this spell appeared, Han Fei seemed to understand something. This was a kind of spiritual pollution that was trying to integrate into his flesh and blood. However, a faint golden light emerged from Han Fei's body. Clatter, clatter, clatter sounded frequently, but none of the twisted runes could really melt into Han Fei's body. And this was not what Han Fei had expected. What surprised him was that Yang Ruoyun ran away with a string of spells while he was wrapped in runes. She ran away just like that? Han Fei was a little stunned. "You have 3 companions here. We agreed to fight the enemy together, But you use them as cannon fodder? Han Fei suddenly grinned. Yang Ruoyun, she is still the same Yang Ruoyun. Resolute, calm, and similarly scheming. Not only was Han Fei surprised, but the 3 Millennium Snappers in front of Han Fei were also stunned. Didn't they agree to attack together? Someone was anxious. Sister Ruoyun, why did she run away by herself? Someone cursed, damn it, she did it on purpose. Let's fight. The 3 of them felt that they might not be able to escape. When they were about to fight, they suddenly heard Han Fei say, I hate this kind of guy who abandons his teammates the most. I won't kill you. After that, the space in front of Han Fei twisted. Then, Han Fei disappeared from the 3's somewhat confused vision. At the top. Chapter 1240. For Han Fei, it didn't matter whether he killed these 3 people or not. Anyway, he didn't really hate these blood demons. Besides, the Blood Sea Divine Wood City didn't seem to be keen on fighting and seemed to be uninterested in the Shuemu Heaven. The reason why he had to deal with these blood demons was that he wanted to deepen the gap between the 2 cities. Besides, so many people had died in the Baibei Royal City. There had to be a reason. Otherwise, if they were to go out and say who killed him, the Shuemu Heaven? Not many people died in the Shuemu Heaven. Yang Ruoyun used a forbidden technique, so her strength naturally couldn't reach the top 10 of the heavenly talent list. It was even a little difficult for her to enter the top 100. But it didn't mean that she was weak. At least she ran very fast. Swish. Just when Yang Ruoyun thought that her 3 companions could at least stall Han Fei for more than 10 seconds, she heard an arrogant laugh in her ears after just 3 seconds. Your behavior of abandoning your companions really astonishes me. Don't you feel even the slightest bit of guilt? Swish. Yang Ruoyun knew that the Fish Dragon King was using the law proximity technique. So, she slashed the scimitar at the void behind her. As the space trembled slightly, a bang sound rang out and the weapon exploded. Hiss, the next second, Han Fei seemed to take a deep breath. Humph, you are just guessing blindly. Do you think I will step into the place where you attack and let you blow me up? Han Fei's figure appeared 200 kilometers away and then began to accelerate. Han Fei said casually, to deal with mediocre people like you, I don't need to be so close. In terms of speed, you are no match for me. Yang Ruoyun gritted her teeth. Why does this guy hate me so much? You said that I am mediocre, so why did you come to chase me? She saw Han Fei's figure approaching rapidly. In the blink of an eye, he was 70 or 80 kilometers away. In the blink of an eye, the 2 were only 50 or 60 kilometers away. Yang Ruoyun was stunned. What the hell is this speed? The Blood Sea Divine Wood City is not without heavenly talents. Which one of them can be so fast? Is this the number 10 in the Baibei Kingdom? In the blink of an eye, they were less than 6,000 li away from the exit. However, Han Fei was already in front of him. With Han Fei's terrifying speed, it was almost impossible for her to reach the exit in time. Yang Ruoyun said, Do you want to know the secret of the 1,000 Mountains ancient realm? I know, I'll trade with you. Han Fei almost laughed out loud. Here you go again. Seeing that you can't escape, you're trying to bluff me again? Han Fei shook his head. Humph. I, the Dragon King, am a king. Why would I care about a mere mystic realm? Are you worried that this Dragon King will kill you? Yang Ruoyun cursed in her heart. How arrogant is this person? Impenetrable? Not even interested in such a secret? Han Fei waved his spear and Yang Ruoyun's abdomen was pierced with a puff. In the face of absolute power, she could not resist at all. Blood spurted out. Yang Ruoyun thought that Han Fei didn't hold back and this blow had seriously injured her. At this moment, she didn't dare to hold back anymore. Squeak! An ear-piercing cry burst out. The waves surged and a bamboo bottle was released. Thousands of ferocious hero souls whizzed at him. The old turtle said, Evil technique. This little girl is secretly practicing the soul-devouring evil technique. However, these possession hero souls can't hurt you at all. Han Fei sneered and the void lines bloomed in an instant. No matter what kind of soul it was, it usually wouldn't end well when faced with the divine manipulation technique. And the red spear in Han Fei's hand was suddenly wrapped in a layer of blue light. The spear was launched and the blue light was dazzling. Dozens of those ferocious hero souls were pierced by the spear. Han Fei slightly grinned. More than half of the patterns of the god-scaring painting had appeared. It was a picture of a long spear in the air. What was engraved on it was the power of a spear. However, at this moment, the god-scaring painting hadn't been fully unfolded, so Han Fei couldn't see its full strength. However, the god-scaring painting was a soul visualization painting. If there was an attack on this visualization painting, it must also be a soul attack technique. Han Fei was very satisfied that dozens of hero souls were killed with one shot. The old turtle said, "Since you have a soul attack technique, why haven't I seen you use it before?" Han Fei shrugged. "This is already my strongest state." The old turtle knew that Han Fei hadn't practiced it well enough. He said, "No wonder. However, since you have the Heaven Awakening Divine Technique, haven't you learned the purification technique of a spirit gatherer?" Han Fei's eyelids twitched. "Purification technique?" The old turtle said, "It's a kind of extremely powerful method to purify evil spirits, just like your Heaven Awakening Divine Technique. If you don't care about your lifespan, you can also purify these hero souls in an instant." Han Fei roared backhandedly, and the dragon's roar shook the sea. The soul-suppressing roar of 100 beasts was not as simple as a collective roar. When he was learning, Han Fei learned it from the alien beasts one by one, and he had heard of the dragon's roar. At this moment, in the dragon's roar, Yang Ruoyun saw hundreds of hero soul phantoms explode one after another. Han Fei walked forward with his spear, and wherever the spear went, the hero souls would explode. Han Fei said disdainfully, "What else do you have? Use them all and let this Dragon King take a look. Otherwise, do you want to live? There is only one way." Yang Ruoyun gritted her teeth. Some trump cards should not be used unless it was the last resort. If Han Fei didn't say the latter sentence, she would definitely use them. Although she felt that even if she used them, she might not be able to live, it was better than waiting for death. However, to her surprise, she was actually of value in Han Fei's eyes. This surprised her a little. Yang Ruoyun's view of human nature was that as long as you were valuable, you were worth being used. As long as you had bargaining chips, you could negotiate. Immediately, Yang Ruoyun secretly played her trump card and said while retreating, "What is it? There is no conflict between us. Now you are stronger than me. Just tell me." Han Fei said proudly, "You're smart. The solution is very simple. If you want to live, someone has to die. I can see that you are quite powerful. You won't suffer a loss if I exchange 100 blood demons for your life, right?" Yang Ruoyun suddenly turned her head and stared at him. "You want me to betray my clansmen?" Han Fei said with a faint smile. "Haven't you already sold them?" Yang Ruoyun's face darkened. It was not that she couldn't do this, but she was afraid that she couldn't do it well. She said, "Can you guarantee that no one can escape?" Han Fei snorted coldly. "Are you questioning my strength? Who do you think I am? A few mere blood demons want to escape from this Dragon King? I respect you. Don't be so shameless." Han Fei's words were full of irritation. This Dragon King. It seemed that he would kill Yang Ruoyun at any time. Yang Ruoyun's heart tightened. If it was a reasonable and sophisticated person, it would be great. But the Fish Dragon King's character. How could she negotiate with him? She immediately said, "Okay. It's a deal. What do you want me to do?" Han Fei squinted at her. "Do you need me to teach you what to do? Of course, you can tempt them to come over. In addition, if you can call the strongest heavenly talents of the Blood Sea Divine Wood City this time, you can make up for 100 of them." Yang Ruoyun's brain was working fast. She felt that Han Fei simply didn't care about her life. What he really wanted was probably not her, but the leader of the Blood Sea Divine Wood City this time. Okay. Yang Ruoyun agreed decisively. She knew very well that her own life was the most important thing, so there was no need to hesitate. Yang Ruoyun was wrapped in a red cocoon and turned into a millennium snapper, squeaking and drifting far away. Han Fei thought to himself. The old turtle couldn't help but say, "Aren't you blocking the entrance? Why don't you just kill this woman? Why do you have to spend so much effort?" Han Fei grinned. Obliterate them? No, it's better to kill her than to kill her. And she is still useful. After about half an hour, the first group of people rushed to the entrance. But those were half mermaids and half mermaids. They didn't come because they heard the Millennium Snapper's song. In the ocean, the strong had a general understanding. Curiosity shouldn't be too strong. This was especially true for a voice that was obviously seductive. Many people would even stay away from it if they heard it. After all, some marine creatures also had the nature to avoid natural enemies. Half an hour later, Han Fei said coldly, "I'll give you another half an hour. If no one comes, prepare to die." Yang Ruoyun gritted her teeth, and suddenly, her eyes lit up. There is a response. Someone is coming. Han Fei asked, "Who?" Yang Ruoyun replied, "One of the leaders this time, Chu Feng." Han Fei froze for a moment. "Is there a crouching dragon?" Yang Ruoyun. The first batch to arrive wasn't Chu Feng. She had merely responded to him. Therefore, the first batch that Han Fei welcomed were 5 ordinary blood demons. The 5 Millennium Snappers all turned into human forms. Someone frowned, looked at Yang Ruoyun, and asked, "What happened? Even an emergency summon was issued?" However, Yang Ruoyun just glanced at them and suddenly retreated. Seeing Yang Ruoyun's reaction, those people immediately had a bad feeling. When they were about to retreat, they saw a flash of cold light. Poochie! Han Fei was good at water control. If he really wanted to hide himself, these people couldn't find him at all. As soon as they met, Han Fei killed them with his spear. Without giving them a chance to react, he launched his unpredictable speed. Puff, puff, puff. 3 tearing sounds rang out, and 3 people fell in succession. The last person's companion spirit was a jellyfish. Although it was pierced, it didn't die. Squeak! Screams rippled out, and the person screamed, "Yang Ruoyun, traitor! Poochie!" Before Han Fei took action, 2 moon scimitars with a weird dark green aura directly pierced the jellyfish. After this person died, Yang Ruoyun looked back at Han Fei. "I was just trying to protect myself." Humph! Han Fei arrogantly grabbed a few sea-swallowing seashells and looked at her coldly. But in his heart, he was gloating. At this point, you still want to protect your image? Haha, if I tell you that I didn't kill the 3 people just now, I wonder what you will think? The best. Chapter 1241. From the first time Han Fei attacked, Yang Ruoyun had clearly realized that she was no match for the Fish Dragon King. At this moment, when she saw Han Fei kill 4 people in an instant, a fiery hope rose in her heart. In fact, what did the death of these blood demons have to do with her? Did a strong master need companions? For example, did the Fish Dragon King need companions at this moment? No, as long as he was strong enough, it would be enough. The main reason was that Millennium Snappers, as a special species, grew differently from normal human beings. The fastest way for them to grow was to suck blood and eat souls. This was why they were called blood demons. At this moment, Han Fei killed 4 people in one blow. Their blood and souls were still there, so Han Fei didn't care. But Yang Ruoyun did. Although this was a hunting feast started by Han Fei, it was also an opportunity for her. Yang Ruoyun glanced at Han Fei. "Since I'm still useful, it shouldn't be a problem for me to swallow these blood demons, right?" Han Fei saw that Yang Ruoyun turned into a Millennium Snapper again, but at this time, she was sucking the blood of the people who had just died. Seeing this scene, Han Fei couldn't help but frown, wondering to himself, do they have to be so unlogged off? She even eats the blood and souls of her companions? The old turtle said, "Oh, no wonder this little girl's foundation wasn't big, but her realm wasn't weak. It turns out that this is how she eat. It seems that there is a strong evil master in this race." Han Fei said disdainfully, "Old Yuan, you are the emperor of the demonic path. How dare you laugh at an evil master?" The old turtle roared, "What do you know? How do you become a demon? You seem to be moody and domineering. But in fact, you are not. I'm more reasonable than the devil path. Compared with this kind of evil master, I am tens of millions of times better." Han Fei sneered. "Keep bragging. Do you think I won't know it in the future?" The old tortoise then changed the topic and said, "I'm telling you the truth. If this kind of blood-sucking and soul-eating only happens to a few creatures, it doesn't matter. However, if all the clans are like this, then the so-called Blood Sea Sacred Wood City that you speak of might have an expert who cultivates evil technique." Han Fei couldn't help but think of something. For some reason, after hearing what the old turtle said, he also felt that this matter seemed a bit strange. If a tribe grew up like this, they should be even more aggressive than the Baibei Royal City. After all, if you want to suck blood and eat souls, you have to suck something too, right? Hiss, Han Fei couldn't help but widen his eyes. "Are you saying that they have been cultivating talents by raising poisonous insects?" The old turtle grunted and said, "That's about right. It's similar to the Zerg's explosive soldiers." Han Fei said, however, unlike the insect clan, the blood demons may be transformed from various creatures. These creatures wouldn't forget their memories after becoming Millennium Snappers. In this aspect, it was much stronger than the insect race beings that the Insect Queen had produced. In the end, the experts of the same realm that were born were even more powerful. At the very least, before reaching the Sea Spirit realm, the insect race doesn't have much of a competitive edge. The old turtle said, "That's right. Spiritual intelligence was something that came from nothing and something that was directly injected into something. These were two completely different concepts. Should I kill this little girl?" Han Fei's eyes flickered. "No, I have an interesting plan. 1 batch. 2 batches. 3 batches." In the next hour, Han Fei killed 9 batches of blood demons in a row. Coincidentally, a batch of half-mermaids came during this period. There were only 3 of them. However, as soon as the 3 of them arrived, they were directly killed by Han Fei. They didn't even talk to each other. Yang Ruoyun was surprised. "You also kill your own kind?" Han Fei grinned hideously. "Who dares to claim to be of the same kind as me? I have the bloodline of the Dragon King. How can these half-mermaids compare to me?" "Yang Ruoyun." Han Fei didn't explain. However, Yang Ruoyun had a guess in her heart. Perhaps it was because she was here, and Han Fei was afraid that others would know that he was cooperating with her. In this way, his status in the Baibei Royal City would also be affected. Suddenly, Han Fei said fiercely, "Why hasn't Chu Feng come yet? Are you lying to me?" Yang Ruoyun hurriedly said, "Chu Feng is a leader after all. Her mission this time is definitely different from mine. Besides, aren't there always blood demons coming?" He had fought with Yang Ruoyun more than once or twice. Han Fei could tell that Yang Ruoyun was lying without thinking. The reason why she called people over was that she wanted to suck the blood and souls of her own kind. Han Fei roared, "This is only 9 batches, and there are only about 40 people in total. I can tell that you don't work hard. I'll give you another half an hour. If Chu Feng still doesn't come, I'll directly kill you." Yang Ruoyun's face turned cold and she thought to herself, "How much does Han Fei hate me?" She wanted to call Chu Feng over, but she was afraid that Han Fei couldn't catch Chu Feng. In that case, she would be screwed. Besides, Yang Ruoyun was also puzzled. It was not that she couldn't call people over, but that Han Fei's words outside the Divine Child Peak attracted a lot of attention. Many people were also sending signals to the nearby blood demons, intending to go with them. As a result, although she tried her best to call people over, not many came over. Because there were also other people calling. However, Han Fei was simply unreasonable. He only spoke according to time and didn't listen to other explanations at all. This made things very difficult for her. On the other side, different from Yang Ruoyun's experience, the three blood demons who had just been released by Han Fei didn't dare to chase Han Fei. Instead, they turned back to look for the main team. At this moment, the three of them bumped into a team of nearly 50 people. Chu Feng was leading a large group of people to the entrance, mainly because Han Fei's words had scared many people. The blood demons thought that their strong masters had done something wrong. For a moment, the scattered blood demons gradually gathered in the middle of all kinds of creaks and incantations. Chu Feng glanced at the three of them. Seeing that they looked flustered, she immediately shouted, "What happened?" One of them said angrily, "Master Chu Feng, we encountered the Fish Dragon King." You're still alive?" The man said, "It's mainly because we were betrayed by Yang Ruoyun." After a while, when a large group of Millennium Snappers heard the explanation of the three people, they all had different reactions. Someone sneered. "I knew they were not reliable. After all, Yang Ruoyun's group is not the original creatures of the Blood Sea area." Someone shouted in a low voice, "The Fish Dragon King is too arrogant. We can't let him do whatever he wants. Otherwise, people will think that there is no one in the Blood Sea Divine Wood City." Chu Feng flicked her tail and the waves slapped. "Don't be noisy. Yang Ruoyun can keep this matter in mind. Maybe she has already been killed by the Fish Dragon King. Let's go to the front to gather first. Isn't someone summoning us ahead?" Han Fei didn't expect that there would be more than 50 people coming for the 10th time. This was more than the previous 9 waves combined. Han Fei couldn't help but grin. That's good. Yang Ruoyun had already eaten a lot. It was time to show off her identity as the Fish Dragon King. After a moment, squeak! Yang Ruoyun continued to call out. She only needed to repeat the summon over and over again, and that would be enough. She didn't know that when they were nearly 500 kilometers away, Han Fei found that the leader of the blood demons had already discovered Yang Run. However, the leader didn't make any response. When Chu Feng sensed Yang Ruoyun, she had already shouted, "Attention, Yang Ruoyun may have defected to the enemy. She is summoning us on purpose. We may be about to be ambushed or have already been ambushed." Ambushed? Why don't I feel anything at all? She's summoning just ahead? If this is a trap, then isn't the one summoning a traitor? Chu Feng was not a fool. When she saw that Yang Ruoyun was summoning them for no reason, she knew that Yang Ruoyun might have defected. However, she scanned the area several times with her perception but still found nothing. Chu Feng was sure that there were no enemies around Yang Ruoyun. Otherwise, it would be impossible for her to hide everything from her. If the Shuemu Heavens or the Baibei Royal City were really so powerful that they could easily hide their scent and traces from her, this expedition would have been doomed. Seeing that there were no demonic plants in the place where Yang Ruoyun was, Chu Feng guessed that there could only be 2 kinds of people ambushing them. One was the top experts of the Baibei Royal City. As far as she knew, they were the Fish Dragon King, Yu Hong and Shui Hongyan. What she was most worried about was not the Baibei Royal City, but the human beings. The other was the spirit gatherers among the human beings, who could draw complicated arrays. Different from the inheritance arrays of the sea creatures, there were many kinds of arrays of human beings. If they were ambushed in large numbers, it meant that the other party must be human beings. Chu Feng waved her hand and said, "Everyone, stop." Then, Chu Feng pointed at the 3 people who had just joined the team and then casually pointed at 2 others. "The 5 of you go to the front. If you see Yang Ruoyun, kill her on the spot." First update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 1242. When Han Fei saw the 3 people he let go just now, he chuckled. It seemed that this impromptu show was almost over. 10 minutes later, when the 3 people she had just abandoned appeared in Yang Ruoyun's perception, she was stunned. She immediately exclaimed, "You didn't kill them?" However, there was no one here to answer her. As early as when Chu Feng sent these people here, Han Fei had lurked and attacked Chu Feng's side. As for Yang Ruoyun, the show had just begun, so she was completely ignored by Han Fei. The old turtle said, "Huh? Why did you deliberately force this little girl into the position of a traitor? Did you know her before?" Han Fei smiled. "Yes, we are old friends. She has no bottom line. She won't die." Sure enough, when the three people saw Yang Ruoyun, they immediately screamed, "Yang Ruoyun, you deserter! I'm going to kill you!" "Yang Ruoyun, we trusted you so much in the past. Who would have thought that in the face of death, this is how you treat us?" Someone reminded, "Be careful. Don't be ambushed." When Yang Ruoyun first saw the three people, she had a bad feeling. With the Fish Dragon King's ability, it should be easy for it to kill the three of them. But why didn't the Fish Dragon King kill them? Since the Fish Dragon King didn't kill them, didn't it deliberately let the three people spread her bad behavior? But what good could the Fish Dragon King do by doing this? Yang Ruoyun couldn't figure it out. She and the Fish Dragon King had nothing to do with each other. Why did the Fish Dragon King make fun of her? Yang Ruoyun was still talking to the people around her via voice transmission. "We have no grudge against each other. Since we want to cooperate, what do these three people want?" Unfortunately, there was still no response. At that moment, Yang Ruoyun's pupils constricted. The Fish Dragon King left? Why? For the first time, Yang Ruoyun felt that her IQ was not enough. At this time, the Fish Dragon King left. Did he just want to mess with her? Unfortunately, reality didn't allow her to think too much. There were only 5 people on the other side. If she killed all of them, no one would know that she had betrayed her teammates. Yang Ruoyun said, "Xiao Jing, Kuei-er, listen to me." Yang Ruoyun did not run away. Instead, with a sincere look, she swam closer to the 5 people. She said, "You're all wrong about me. I escaped because I knew that the Fish Dragon King's target was me. So, as long as I ran fast enough, he wouldn't have time to bother you." Han Fei, who was already 500 kilometers away, chuckled when he heard this. Sure enough, she could make up anything. "You? And you're the Ichthyosaur King's target? Do I think your face is big?" When those words fell into the ears of the blood demons, it was a different story. When these words fell in the ears of the blood dragon, were the blood. Someone shouted, "If you have a go, I will." However, Yang Ruoyun did not make any moves. Instead, she said with a serious expression, "I know that no matter what I say, none of you will believe me. How about this, I'll show you." As she spoke, Yang Ruoyun threw a sea-swallowing seashell at them and said, "You'll know why the Fish Dragon King came to me after seeing what's inside, right?" Seeing this scene, Han Fei grinned. It was a familiar routine. What was the difference between this and the treasure map that Yang Ruoyun had given him in the past? However, the treasure map was replaced by a sea-swallowing seashell. A blood demon simply grabbed the sea-swallowing seashell and thought to himself, "Yang Ruoyun is so straightforward. Is there really a secret?" However, when she scanned the area with her perception, her expression changed drastically. Bang! Before they realized what was going on, their sea-swallowing seashells exploded. A few rays of red light suddenly blossomed. Like 5 red arrows, they instantly pierced through the bodies of the 5 people. Puff, puff, puff. 500 kilometers away, Chu Feng, who was observing from afar, shouted, "Bastard!" Han Fei was not surprised by this. Anything could go wrong with what Yang Ruoyun had given him. It seemed that not all the blood demons were cunning. It was rare to see someone like Yang Ruoyun. Of the people pierced through by Yang Ruoyun, the 3 closest to her were directly pierced through and their souls shattered. As for the other 2, one of them tried to escape, but he was caught by a red string. At the last moment the man screamed, "It's the soul-attracting branch! Yang Ruoyun has a soul-attracting branch!" The last person, because he was the furthest away and ran the fastest, fled in an instant, stained with blood. Of course, Yang Ruoyun wouldn't let this person go. I've already used my trump card. How can I let you go? Chu Feng shouted, "Everyone, kill Yang Ruoyan." However, just as Chu Feng shouted, a sinister laugh rang out beside her ear. Swish! Suddenly, a spear light pierced through the air, ignoring time, as if penetrating space, and stabbed directly at Chu Feng. This was no longer something that could be described as fast or not. As soon as Han Fei's laughter sounded, Chu Feng's face had already changed, and a fiery red gauze flew out from her body like a red formation. And her body had moved hundreds of meters horizontally. Even so, with a puff, one of Chu Feng's arms was pierced by the spear. Chu Feng's expression changed drastically. "It's the Fish Dragon King." Hum, hum. Squeak, one companion spirit after another appeared. Someone turned into a human form and whipped Han Fei with a long whip. Someone tried to confuse Han Fei in the form of a Millennium Snapper. Han Fei stepped into the crowd of blood demons, pointed his spear, grabbed a spear with one hand, and crushed it with one hand. Han Fei shouted coldly, "You're just a bunch of blood demons. How dare you attack me?" Dumb, dumb, dumb. Han Fei quickly moved sideways and smashed the Monkey King's 3,000 strikes. The dozen or so blood demons that attacked him were smashed into a mist of blood almost in the blink of an eye. Seeing this scene, Chu Feng's heart skipped a beat. Is this Fish Dragon King so strong? His physique, speed, and strength seem to be better than mine. But the Fish Dragon King is only ranked 10th on the heavenly talent list of the Baibei Royal City? Then how strong are the 9 people in front of him? Chu Feng shouted, "Everyone, don't fight. Run." Looking at the Millennium Snappers that were fleeing, Han Fei sneered. "You want to run? That depends on whether I'm willing to." The dragon roared, and the sharp spear light traversed the sea. Puff, puff. It was not the instant mystic spear, but the spear light in the god-scaring painting. Although it could not be used to its full potential, once the spear was unleashed, it would be able to destroy the souls of these blood demons. It could even ignore physical defense and directly bombard souls. Run. Not good. This man is too fierce. We can't defeat him. My illusion doesn't work on him. No, I can't forcibly affect his chi and blood. For a moment there were exclamations and some people fled in a hurry. Chu Feng shouted, "Fish Dragon King, is there any misunderstanding between the Blood Sea Divine Wood City and the Baibei Royal City?" Han Fei roared, "Misunderstanding? How dare you ambush this Dragon King? You actually killed this Dragon King's personal guards, not leaving a single one alive. Based on your behavior, if I don't kill more than 300 blood demons today, how can I appease my anger?" Chu Feng immediately cursed in his heart, "No. The Fish Dragon King is so strong. Who on earth has the ability to ambush such a person? And even killed all of his personal attendants?" Unfortunately, this was not the time to think about it. The problem now was that the Fish Dragon King had gone crazy. Chu Feng shouted, "Fish Dragon King, don't go too far. Otherwise, no one will benefit from a life-and-death struggle." Han Fei chuckled. "Then let's have a try. Let's see if my net is strong enough." Gotcha! A green conch was smashed by Han Fei with a spear strike. Its master vomited blood and was pierced by Han Fei's spear. Therefore, a miraculous scene appeared in the sea. Han Fei, alone, with a red spear, chased and killed more than 40 blood demons. When Han Fei chased them to the exit, he found that hundreds of Shui Mu Tian's people were intercepting him. There were 200 or 300 sea demons and red demons each. They had gathered and were fighting Shui Mu Tian. When Han Fei intercepted the blood demons outside, it seemed that many people had already rushed to the entrance. At that time, everyone saw that Han Fei was chasing nearly 20 people. When he appeared in their perception, they were all speechless. It looked too disharmonious. Seeing this scene, Xu Xiaoman thought to herself, "Why can Han Fei be so fierce no matter who he turns into?" Chu Feng shouted, "Everyone, join forces and kill the Fish Dragon King." Han Fei roared, Today, I'm going to slay 300 blood demons. Don't stop me. A sea demon shouted, Master Dragon King, Shui Mu Tian. Han Fei glared at them and shouted, Shui Mu Tian, I'm not interested in fighting you today. Leave now. Then Han Fei suddenly pointed his spear at Shu Xiaoman. Do you want to stop me? Shu Xiaoman was slightly taken aback. Again? She said, I, Shui Mu Tian, will not get involved in the affairs of your Baibei royal city and the Blood Sea Divine Wood City. Han Fei said proudly, since you don't want to fight, get out. Don't get in my way. Immediately, Shui Mu Tian's side was in an uproar, and a bug buzzed. Why should we go out when you tell us to? How humiliating will we be? A big bird shouted, we won't go. What can you do to us? This was the excuse that Han Fei wanted. He wanted an excuse to stop. The next moment, Han Fei's face changed and he said with an awful expression, Fine, fine, fine. Shui Mu Tian ruined my plan. I will find you sooner or later and kill you heavenly talents one by one. How dare you ambush me and kill my subordinates with the Blood Sea Divine Wood City? I will never forgive you. Just wait and see. At this moment, Han Fei suddenly felt that a strange power entered his body. Before Han Fei asked, the old turtle said, just keep acting. It happens to be close to the entrance, so I'll offer a sacrifice to that fish. Second, asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 1243. Yu Wendao, who was waiting outside the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm, felt inexplicably annoyed. When Han Fei sacrificed for the second time, he found that Han Fei's soul power was not weak, but full of self-deception. Just now, he found that one of his great paths was borrowed, and he didn't even have a chance to resist. Originally, he created the Book of Changes. After someone cultivated it and sacrificed their soul, he would grant them the power of great paths. Something's wrong. At this moment, Yu Wendao was shocked. 3 great paths in one day? Would he be able to eat it? Besides, it was in the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm. Even if the power of great paths was borrowed, so what? If you exerted the power of the Tao-seeking state, you would have bad luck and even be bombarded by the great path. However, Yu Hanjia borrowed it twice and sent a large number of souls, which were full of roars, power, desire, fighting, killing. These inexplicable things. Suddenly, a female venerable looked at Yu Wendao and asked, Wendao, your spiritual waves are a bit strong. What's wrong? Yu Wendao's expression changed slightly as he said with a faint smile, Nothing much, I just had a sudden thought. A half-mermaid venerable frowned. How many times have I told you that your great paths are a bit complicated? I told you to focus on one Tao, but you didn't listen. What ideas do you have now? Yu Wendao asked. Maybe it's the idea of breaking through the venerable realm. Guys, let me leave for now. The half-mermaid venerable shook his head slightly. Go. I hope you can understand that it's not easy to find a Tao. Sometimes, one Tao is equivalent to thousands. Yu Wendao nodded slightly. Okay. I'll try again. Then, Yu Wendao tore the void and fled. As soon as he entered the void, Yu Wendao's face began to slowly twist. A low roar burst out from Yu Wendao's throat. If one looked carefully, they would find that Yu Wendao's eyes had turned completely black. Roar. Why? Is the Book of Changes wrong? Why is a peak-level sea spirit boy's soul so dark? Roar. Let go of your soul, and you will gain infinite power. You will become immortal in the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm. The Fish Dragon King that Han Fei was disguised as wasn't stupid enough to fight the blood demons immediately. Although he was a spy now, he couldn't do such a stupid thing blatantly. It was true that the Fish Dragon King was a Heaven's Chosen, but it would be too much of a lie to say that any random Heavens Chosen from the royal city could challenge hundreds of people. That would definitely raise suspicions. Han Fei suddenly sensed that 1 or 2 marvelous powers suddenly crawled into his body. Then, it was eaten by the old tortoise. He couldn't sense what kind of power it was, but he felt that it was very strange. The power seemed to be very strong. Old Turtle, what are you doing? The old turtle said, I've been egging that fish to seek the path for a day, and I've just offered a sacrifice. I'm about to capture it. Mind your own business, don't worry about me. Seeing that Han Fei seemed to be lost in thought, Chu Feng heaved a sigh of relief. She immediately asked, Has anyone seen Yang Ruoyun? She has rebelled. Kill her on the spot. Ignoring the old turtle, Han Fei said to Shu Xiaoman telepathically, Tell them that the mission has been completed. Don't tell them that I've been to the 1,000-mountain ancient realm. Shu Xiaoman immediately replied, It's really you. You're out. Has the fish dragon king died? Those who have seen me have all died. Wait for a while. When the undead drive the people to the exit, you can leave with the people of the Shuemu heaven first. Shu Xiaoman asked, What about you? Aren't you going back to the Shuemu heaven? I have my own business. Shu Xiaoman stared at Han Fei and asked, What do you want me to say to Jing Er? Han Fei pondered for a moment and finally replied, Tell Jing Er 2 words. Shu Xiaoman couldn't help but wonder, what message can 2 words convey? She couldn't help but ask, What word? Han Fei replied, Junior sister. Shu Xiaoman. The fish dragon king that Han Fei incarnated was standing in the air at this moment, with the red spear in his hand trembling slightly beside him. His eyes had been fixed on the Blood Sea Divine Wood City, which made many blood demons a little flustered. Just when Han Fei was thinking about how to provoke it, he suddenly discovered that 3 people had appeared in his perception almost at the same time. One of them was Yang Ruoyun, and the other one, to Han Fei's surprise, turned out to be Lan Shuer. Next to Lan Shuer was Yu Keiling. Han Fei was a little surprised. After Lan Shuer was poisoned and frozen into an ice block, she didn't die? Not only did she not die, but also Yu Keiling? Wasn't she caught in the 9 sounds of the Great Way and swallowed by the undead? Han Fei's pupils constricted slightly. Did these 2 people know that he killed the fish dragon king? They probably didn't see it. But should he bet on it? Humph. In the awkward situation where the 3 parties gathered together but couldn't fight, Han Fei shouted, Chu Feng, right? Tell this dragon king, who in the Blood Sea Divine Wood City can control this strange melody, who can control the 7 emotions and 6 desires. Tell me, and I won't give you a hard time. Han Fei didn't hide his words when he spoke. Therefore, the Blood Sea Divine Wood City, the Baibei Royal City, and the Shuemu Heavens were all surprised. What? The fish dragon king chased after Han Fei angrily because it was tricked by someone in the Blood Sea Divine Wood City? Chu Feng's face turned cold. She was confused at first. Although she didn't really have a life-and-death battle with Han Fei, judging from Han Fei's combat efficiency and strength, she was definitely no match for him. And on this trip to the 1,000-mountain ancient realm, there shouldn't be many people stronger than her. Chu Feng doubted that there was anyone stronger than the Fish Dragon King. Who the hell knew that the 10th on the heavenly talent list from the Baibei Royal City would be so strong? When Han Fei was so strong, there was still someone on her side who could ambush Han Fei, and he even successfully killed the other people around the Fish Dragon King? How could she not know that he was so strong? When Han Fei said that, his voice echoed far away. Lan Shuer, Yu Keiling, and Yang Ruoyun, who was hiding, all heard it. However, in the ears of these 3 people, it sounded different. If Lan Shuer and Yu Keiling knew that he attacked the Fish Dragon King, they would definitely doubt his authenticity when they heard his voice. And if Yang Ruoyun heard what he said, with her cleverness, she might be able to figure out a way to get out of his death. In the distance, after hearing Han Fei's voice, Lan Shuer immediately trembled and bit her lips with a complicated look in her eyes. She really didn't expect that a strong master like the Fish Dragon King could be so ruthless. In the face of danger, he used himself as a shield. Yu Keiling patted Lan Shuer's shoulder. It's better to rely on yourself than on others. Before you're strong enough to resist these people, you have to hold back. Lan Shuer nodded heavily. Sister Keiling, what should we do now? Yu Keiling said, From the tone of the Fish Dragon King, at least he is safe. Besides, this person asked so domineeringly, which means that the situation should not be very dangerous. But this person is arrogant. In case he starts another war, let's wait. On the other side, Yang Ruoyun still didn't know that Chu Feng had already known that she had betrayed the Fish Dragon King. So, she wanted to continue to move forward. However, for some reason, she was a little afraid of the Fish Dragon King. This person's way of doing things was unconstrained and unconstrained, and he didn't play by the rules. She felt that he had a purpose, but she really couldn't figure it out. Yang Ruoyun also decided to wait a little longer. If a battle was about to break out, who knew how she could survive? However, on the Divine Child Peak, Water Fairy clearly knew that there was no such powerful person as Han Fei said. Ambush him? He should be thankful that he didn't ambush others. Therefore, Water Fairy could tell that Han Fei was just making up a story and making up an enemy. Therefore, those blood demons were inexplicably implicated. Water Fairy could understand that since Han Fei couldn't attack Shui Mutian, he had to make an enemy so that he could better blend in with the sea demons. However, what Water Fairy didn't understand was that there seemed to be something extraordinary in Han Fei's body. There seemed to be some kind of Taoist aura that crossed her own barrier and fell on Han Fei. This was one point. On the other hand, Han Fei seemed to have been forcing the blood demon named Yang Ruoyun to a dead end, but every time he gave her a chance to live, he must have the intention to make use of her. At this point, Water Fairy could conclude that the Han Fei she saw now was far more cunning than that silly disciple Wang Han. Just from this series of actions that she didn't understand, she could guess that Han Fei must be planning something. With a thought from Water Fairy, half of the sea became restless. More and more undead creatures began to drill out of the ground and began to approach the entrance. At the same time, Han Fei pointed his spear at Chu Feng. Are you going to tell me or not? Third. Asking for tickets. Flying to Hangzhou immediately. End of this chapter.